meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right. We'll have announcements from our closed session. Vice President Butler.
All right. The board did meet in closed session this evening. The first item was consider administrative panel's recommendation for an expulsion, student 52292. The motion for the expulsion of the student 52292 was based on the review of the panel's recommendation. Trustee Millerick made the motion to expel. The student will be expelled for the remainder of the semester plus the full next semester. For the following Ed Code violations 48915A3 and 48915C3. Trustee Aguila seconded the motion, and I will take a roll call vote. Trustee Millerick.
Aye.
Trustee Nell.
Aye.
Trustee Aguila.
Aye.
Trustee Mack.
Aye.
Trustee Scott.
Aye.
And President Cooper.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. So, okay, thank you. Need 1 second here so I can record this. The second item, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Nevada Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court case, civil case 1702295. We gave direction to staff. The third item we discussed was conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers. We received an update. The fourth item was conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, otherwise known as CSEA. We received an update, and that is it.
Thank you, Vice President Butler. And I would like to, that brings us to our next item, and that would be approval of tonight's agenda, and I would ask for a motion to approve.
I'll move the order of business, for the order of the agenda for this evening's meeting.
Trustee Miller is a first, and
I'll second.
second Trustee Scott. All in favor? That passes 7-0. Thank you.
I'll take over this next one. So every board meeting, and just not every year at this time, at this board meeting, we do our reorganization of our board. So, which means our board president, Tom Cooper, will be stepping down, and we will be moving into, and I will be stepping down from my position, and we will bring forward 2 new people to do those spots. So first let's recognize President Cooper. Thank you very much for serving us this last year. It's been a little crazy year, I think we could say. I had a little list, and now I've lost my little piece of paper, but if you recall the first meeting that we approved board president last year, you were not here. You were sick, and so look what happens when you don't show up. You become board president. So we moved into, we passed the bond, and we had all of the issuing of the bond sale, and we even refinanced our 2001 bond through. These are some things that crossed our desk here in the last year that you were a big part of as board president. And we had Nobel's Initiative come through. We had dual immersion, the late start. So we had many things come through. One of the big things was the lights at the San Marin High School. That was quite the process. And as board president, it takes a lot of coordination and making sure everything falls into place and all the meetings are set up properly, that we handled them and where we had them and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for this last year. You did a great job.
Thank you,
and very confident, and we appreciate that. And
Thank
your
you so much.
calmness helps as we make it through. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a
here
pleasure.
we go. On behalf
Pleasure
of the
being
board,
here.
a little something.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure to serve as board president, and I really appreciate your patience with me at times. And hopefully I know we had a great year, and look forward to many more.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to say anything? Trustee Miller?
I'd like to add to the list that we went to one-to-one computers for
Right.
3 grade levels,
Right.
and with a good rollout. And one more accomplishment under your belt, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ross.
And another, get focused, stay focused. Can't forget that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Trustee Nell?
Well, I just wanted to thank President Cooper. It's the last chance I get to say that on this round. So respectfully do appreciate your service and what you've done for our community. And no need to ask from patience from us, because I think it's the patience that you exuded and the poise that you have has helped lead us through some challenges from time to time. So just want to recognize you for that and appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. There were times where I was about to call you or email you and expecting that I wanted to get some information for you, and I never expected a phone call, but as the time that I was about to email you or about to call you, you would call me. And so I really, really appreciate that. You were really in tune with at least some of my questions and needs. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for all your hard work. It wasn't easy, so thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that.
Go.
All right. With all those nice comments.
Wait.
Wait.
Okay, Shelley.
We have him and then
Sorry.
I was ready to go. I'll be quick, though.
Oh,
I didn't want to draw it out too long. I really appreciate it.
But, no, Tom, thank you for all your time. It was a crazy year, and we're still catching our breath this year, I think. And we got a lot accomplished, and I want to say thanks for actually working with me a lot. You showed a lot of patience. I probably brought a little more energy sometimes than I needed to, but thank you for the guidance and
that's not
the
true.
steady hand. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, I just want to say thank you, President Cooper. You did a great job. I appreciate your leadership, and it's always a pleasure working with you, so thank you.
Feelings mutual. Thank you, Shelley. Now,
So I'd just like to chime in. So one of the key things that the board president and vice president do is communication and helping to facilitate the meetings, and just really appreciate your thinking things through and talking them out. We have agenda planning meetings every week just to talk about what the agenda is going to be and how to get that done, and I think the communication has been excellent. And just for the board in general, I just appreciate the fact that this board really has a lot of protocols and procedures in place. They've been working together for a long time. They know what their role is as board members, and that makes it easier for us as staff to get our jobs done because we're clear. They give us clear parameters. We know what our job is. They know what their job is. They know how to work together. Doesn't mean that they always agree with each other, but they know how to disagree and when that needs to happen. So as a superintendent and a staff, we really love working with you guys because everything's clear, and when you don't understand something, you ask us directly. And so it's just been a privilege to work here, and thank you for really exemplifying all the good traits of a board member. We appreciate it.
thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And so with that, my last act as president is I'm going to go to item 9A, and that's where I'll take nominations from this body to nominate the next board president. And Trustee Nell.
Mr. President, I would like to nominate Trustee Butler to be president.
All right, so I have a first, Trustee Nell, and a second. Trustee Aguilar? Okay. So a first and a second. Let me call for a vote. All in favor of having Debbie Butler as our next president? That passes 7-0. Congratulations. Great job.
You don't want to be vice president now? Just go back into the rotation?
Okay, Madam President.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for letting me be the next board president. I appreciate that very much. So we will take, the next thing is we want to appoint or nominate somebody for our board clerk / our vice president. So I will take nominations from the board. Trustee Miller.
To nominate Trustee Scott to step forward to this position.
Okay. And a second? Okay, Trustee Nell? Okay. All in favor to nominate Trustee Scott as our next vice president? Fabulous. Great.
With our thanks,
Thank you.
Shelley.
Now you gotta move again.
If you work hard, you can get clear to this end of the table, Tom.
Oh. Okay, smile for the camera. Yeah.
I don't know who the trustee rep is. Is it you, Derek?
I didn't open it.
Who's
I
the
didn't use it.
trustee
I
rep
use this
today?
all the
Let me
time,
see.
so.
Oh, we got-
All right, we're ready? Keep moving on. All right, the next item for reorganization is we also have somebody who represents us on the Marin County School Boards Association, a trustee, and Trustee Mack, has been our representative. Are you interested in continuing on in that role?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So we
President.
need a motion to nominate Greg as our representative on the Marin County School Boards Association.
I make that nomination.
Okay,
I second.
trustee Cooper is a first and trustee Aguila is a second.
Yep.
All in favor? Okay, 7-0, thank you. All right, so that is it. We are done with our reorganization of the board, thank you. And if, the next item is our public comment on the consent agenda, but I will just say if anybody would like to make public comment on anything on the agenda and anything that is not on the agenda, you do need to fill out a blue card, which is located in the lobby, and bring it up to Gladys here, and we will make sure we fit you into the right spot. And you have 3 minutes to speak to that item. So I do not, nothing for the consent agenda. So is there anybody who would like to pull anything on consent? Otherwise, we can take a motion to approve that.
I'm prepared to move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Okay.
I second.
Trustee Aguila is a second, so a first by trustee Nell and a second by trustee Aguila to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Okay, 7-0. All right, now the best part is always having one of our schools come each board meeting and do a presentation, and we have Olive Elementary this evening.
Nope. Okay. All right.
Great.
Now we're good. Good evening. I have the honor of introducing two amazing adults who have helped a crew of students. So could I have the students and Sarah Coyle and Karen Katselas are our advisors to this. Karen Katselas is our PTA president, and Sarah Coyle is a third grade teacher. We also have another teacher who could not be here tonight, and that's Tiffany Boulad, our kindergarten teacher. All right, my friends. Do Olive proud.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And thank you to the parents who brought their kids here tonight. So I'm going to let the video speak for itself, and then you'll hear from a few of our kindness ambassadors. Can you start? No. Back. Spoiler alert.
Hello, my name is Maddie Kane, and I am Olive School's Kindness Crew co-president. I decided to join the Kindness Crew because Kindness Crew makes things fair. I think the Buddy Bench and Kindness Ninjas are a good idea. Kindness Ninjas and Buddy Benches make people happy. Thank you.
My name is Talia Kavanaugh, and I am a Kindness Crew ambassador. To join the Kindness Crew, we had to fill out an application and write an essay about why we wanted to join the Kindness Crew.
My name is Landry Hutchins, and I'm the Kindness Crew co-vice president. We meet once a month over at lunchtime to talk about the theme of the month, like family, compliments, or community. We also decide which kindness challenges we'd like to do.
My name is Aristokatselis. My name is Aristokatselis, and I am the Kindness Crew co-vice president. I like being part of the Kindness Crew because it's good to be kind to other people. On behalf of the Olive Kindness Crew, we'd like to give Mr. Hogaboom this small gift.
I just want to close by saying these kids are amazing. So amazing. I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud of all the work that they do and the ideas that they have. I'm like emotional about it because it's so sweet. But this is our future, and in a world right now, I just think that we need this. We need people to be nice to each other, and we need to be kind. And I couldn't be more proud of you guys, and I'm so excited to be a part of this with you. So thank all of you.
Well, thank you very much, and I couldn't agree more to have the kind crew at Olive. And I know there's other schools that are doing kindness as well, but thank you very much. And kindness needs to be make America kind again. I thought was the best line in the video. So thank you. Does any board members have comments or no? Okay. Well, we need a group photo, so come up here to the kids. Oops. And teachers and parents. Great. And we will do a group photo and. Yeah, that's cute. Okay, let's bring it back. Let's do announcements from our student board members and us. So why don't we start with Manuela? You're the only one here. What happened? It's not finals week yet.
I know, right? Well, today our whole entire school went to the Marin Theater Company and we saw a play called Shakespeare in Love. Completely awesome. I was totally amazed with all the actors. I loved it a lot. And last Friday we had an assembly at the end of the day, and we do this thing called honor roll, and I got 2 awards from last quarter and this first quarter. So proud of myself. And then the Friday before Thanksgiving break, we had our annual Thanksgiving feast where the school provides a full Thanksgiving meal. And the cooking class that Mr. Mattern teaches provide our sides meals. And that was the first time for me, but it was like an amazing experience because the whole entire school got together, even though it's like small and like we know one each other like on a very small basis. It was still good to like see us all in the room. And then on a Tuesday or Friday, I believe, the Bridges program, which I am in, went to College of Marin for a field trip to explore the campus. And to me, it was an amazing experience to see this college. And we got to go to this class, I forgot what it was called, but to see those students go up into the classroom and explain what their experience is was extraordinary, and it was really important to all of us Marin Oak students to see what we could become in the future. And as in for Jeffrey, he says that he wants me to say that they had a student advocacy council meeting today discussing how they can help the ELD students and how they can better get bilingual TAs to help ELD students as well in their classes, and that they are having Mr. Mustang next week, which is, I presume, a contest.
It is.
That is
they
all
do
I
it
have.
every year, yeah. And Jeffrey's from San Marin, just to,
Yes.
yeah, right. Great, thank you for doing dual jobs there, I appreciate it. Trustee Millerick,
No announcements.
okay?
Thank you.
Trustee Nell?
Just to remind you all that we're planning our JLAC, the Joint Legislative Action Committee trip up to Sacramento, and I hope we will have our student board members attending or go with us. Okay, great. So I know you guys are aware of that, and but also that there's still time to get any comments in or priorities in on our priorities that we present to our representatives at those meetings. So if anyone has got anything, just a reminder to get it to me or Ken Lippy at the district office, and we will be sending out early January a draft for review to see if to get some feedback before we make it official. Also wanted to report out on my attendance of the district advisory committee was yesterday, and we discussed our equity imperative and went through a few exercises to, I think, primarily to expand awareness and to try to come up with ideas on how to do things differently so we'll have more of an impact in the future. So I know you'll all get reports from staff on that as well. But we are moving ahead on our graduate profile and doing the best we can on advising the district on what to do. So,
Thank
Thank
you. Trustee Aguila?
No comment.
Okay, Trustee Mack?
Just a couple things really quick. Last week went to the Technology Advisory Committee, and while I think we all understand a large focus of that committee was the Wonder World project, and that continues because there's still logistics we have to work out on the back end of that process, as well as continued distribution over the future years. But there's a bunch of other projects as well that we're starting to dive into. The one I got sucked into was the learning management system, and that's going to be a big one, I think. So, so I'll keep everybody posted as we move along there. That's a very large committee, and it's a large charter to tackle. The other thing is, and Shelley knows this quite well, Bite of Reality is coming. Redwood Credit Union, our partners, is sponsoring it at Novato High, I think this coming Monday.
It's Monday.
And I'll be there volunteering, acting as the shady car dealer, trying to sell overpriced cars to poor kids. Yeah, I'll wear this suit. Yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Cooper.
No comments.
Okay, Trustee Scott.
Well, I just wanted to also comment about the Bite of Reality, that we are partnering with the Redwood Credit Union, and I invite all the trustees to come and participate and volunteer your time. It's great to work with the kids and actually, experience them trying to figure out how to write a check, because many times they don't know how to write a check, and it's a legal document. So it's an interesting process going through it. I always look forward to it every year. They do a great job. The more volunteers we can have, the better. So if any of you can come, please text me and reach out. It's going to be this Monday at Novato High. Be early in the morning, so you probably need to be on campus by 8 o'clock. Thank you.
7:30, actually.
7:30. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. I will be doing Bite of Reality too, and they gave me some assignment, but it's kind of like secret, undercover kind of person. So I was like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have a few things to report out, sorry. I did the GATE leadership meeting. I attended that, and they're continuing. They just gave an update on some of the training that teachers are continually getting for GATE, for teaching to GATE students. They're looking into the testing. The testing is coming up in the spring, so they always review that at this time to make sure how they're going to handle all of that. Budget Advisory Committee, and I also attended the budget presentation that Yancey did. The first one was last week. The next one is next week. I don't remember the date. Next Tuesday at Novato High in the library at 6:30. So please go. It is worth your while.
Are we allowed to go to that? I have that on my calendar, but I wasn't sure. I was going to ask Jim.
I went.
Okay.
And it was me and 10 other people. Jim was there. It was very low attended, so we need more people to show up. You need to have, everybody needs to have an interest in the budget. I think it'll answer a lot of questions. The TK and Kinder Parent Night was here. I stopped by that. MSA had a review night for all incoming students. I stopped by that. And then I did attend, the city did Vineyard Road is being repaved. And Vineyard Road runs where Sinaloa is. And it's, road that needs to be repaved. And they've been working at this for years. And I was really hoping for a bike lane on that road. And the city will not be putting a bike lane. If they reopen the project, they have to go through the environmental impact again. And it is... they'll lose the funding. They're getting some funding for this project, and they will potentially lose it if they were to reopen everything. And it's been an ongoing issue because they've had some change in their engineers over the last few years. And so every time there's a change in staffing, the project sort of gets put off on hold. So they're hoping to start the repaving, which will be repaving and striping and crosswalks and things like that, but most likely no bike lane in the summer, which is disappointing. And then I was asked to attend the Marin Arts Education Vision Team, which is something they're putting together a plan about arts in education and how important to continue to have the arts present. I mean, luckily our district still makes art an important entity of a child's education, and the county office, along with some other partners, are putting together a plan. And so I sat in on that for a day. It was a workshop, and how the Common Core, how art intertwines into the Common Core. So it was very good, and that'll be coming forward, this plan. And it won't be telling districts what to do. It'll just be, hey, this is what you can do in regards to the arts. Then I was elected to the Marin County Committee on School District Organizations last night. So I will be serving on, it's called the SDO. I was asked to serve Alan Harris, who is a past board member. He's up here somewhere. Was the representative. There's 2 representatives from each supervisory district. So it's now myself and Jennifer Treppa, who's a past board member as well. We both are now serving in for Novato. And it's a 4-year term. You go through the whole election, it's not election, the oath of office and all of that. So I did all of that, and my term will start in January, and again, it's a 4-year term. So it's an 11-member board, and there's 2 members from each supervisory district plus a member at large. And things that will come before us if is a district, two districts want to combine, consolidate, or there's an organization of a new district, transfer a property from one district to another district. So a house or a group of homes are being built and they want to be in this district, not that district. That'll come before us. And like we had at one time, somebody brought forward changing our board to a 5-member board. That goes through them as well, the SDO. So you could have a very busy year, or I won't see these people until next year when the reorganization comes up again. So it just depends on what's happening. And right now, there's nothing happening right now. So
Congratulations.
that's it. Sorry. I had a lot of stuff.
So you guys hit most of it, but two things, actually three quick things. So State Senator Mike McGuire came and visited Novato High School last week, and specifically came to visit the North Bay Initiative program, the MBI program at Novato High School, and it was pretty impressive. And what was most impressive were the students who articulated how the program was helping to personalize their learning and meet them where they were and let them take charge and have responsibility of their learning. So that was pretty exciting. We have interviews coming up on Friday for our IT director. So we have 3 or 4 good candidates. Hopefully that'll happen. And then also last week, we took about, I think it was about 20 people altogether to the Assessment Training Institute grading conference up in Portland. Rick Stiggins, who does assessment for learning, a lot about grading and strong, sound grading practices, and we primarily have brought our math teachers. Last year we took about 10 to 15 teachers, so we have kind of a critical mass now. Hoping, and not that the grading is the only problem we have in math, but it's certainly one of them to take a look at. So just strong, good grading practices, such as letting kids retake tests, not giving kids a 0 when they get an F, some basic things like that, but really trying to get some clarity around what is assessment literacy, what is effective assessments, which, so now we're gonna bring that group together again with some next steps, which could lead to redoing the middle school report cards. I mean, frankly, our grading is all over the place, and what one teacher gives as a grade is a lot different than what another teacher does, and the criteria is all different, and frankly, it doesn't make a lot of sense in my personal opinion. So I think that going to a standards-based report card, similar to what elementary has, and elementary, we probably need to look at revising those as well. But there are just a lot of great sound grading practices, lessons learned, and the teachers are the ones that seem excited now about going ahead and taking a look at our board policies about grading and homework, and really getting into the 21st century and trying to come up with some grading practices that make a little more sense than some of the practices we have now. So we're really excited to move that forward. Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to non-agenda public comment. I do have one card here, Matt Elkins. No, there he is. Right now, no. As soon as you come up and just.
I want to say before I start,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for everything. I'm honored to be here tonight. And thank you to the rest of the board for your service. Okay, let's do it. I'm here. So it feels like it's a new era for the board, and congratulations again to that. I also feel like it's a new era for Novato baseball, so we have a lot in common. You know, I've been trying to organize a flag football program in Marin County for the high school age kids, and as part of that, I went and investigated how much it costs to rent a football field at Novato High School, and I found out it's $120 an hour. And I did not know that. That's very good. So if you multiply that by 3 with a new baseball field and a new multi-purpose field, the revenue speaks for itself. It was very interesting. So imagine the potential. So what other typical project from Measure G funds commands an actual financial return on an investment? It's a no-brainer. You know, imagine 3 fields: football, baseball, multi-purpose, as I said. So please ask Yancy and Mike to ask Vince about alternative plans that include baseball and or softball in the multi-purpose design at Novato High School. I know for a fact that Vince has given it some thought already, and he can probably give you a few new visions for the field within just a couple of days. I believe that one of his suggestions, combined with a fairly quick decision on reallocation of Measure G funds, could still allow for a summer project. A close look at Measure G plans seem to uncover 3 kinds of projects: infrastructural necessity, including electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, academic enhancement like high tech and new buildings for program space and enhancement. And finally, wish list requests, and that would be cool to have, like a brand new track and turf field, maybe at a middle school that has none or few competitive reasons for it. But if someone says, hey man, here's your chance, use it or lose it, someone is probably going to ask for it. Had baseball been given that voice and opportunity, we might not be having this discussion, but we are, as you know. My recommendation is that you determine what the pure wish listers are and find compromise to fund a truly needed baseball rehab that also provides an ever likely revenue stream through field rentals. Perhaps the middle schools could get by with a new track surface, but live with the grass field. That could free up a couple of $1 million, I think. When those kids, the middle schoolers, move up to Novato High School, they will be rewarded with a state-of-the-art facility that will make them proud to be part of a new era at a school that provides them the best opportunity to excel. The district will be rewarded with better athletes and one of the few true sources of revenue from any of its Measure G expenditures. We encourage each of you to spend 20 minutes touring our baseball facility to see and hear the very real challenges and potential demise facing baseball at Novato High School. I think all of you have been invited to take a tour of the field. Hopefully you'll be able to do that. It is enlightening. And don't forget, we are partners in the overall vision of the facility. Our parent group will have to find a way to achieve our separate but connected fundraising goals for an optimized practice facility. We're going to do that in partnership with you. And that new facility is new turf at Novato High School. So please, let's do this thing, and thank you so much for your time.
All right, John Arata is our next speaker.
Hi, my name's John Arata, and I have a son who's a junior at Novato High. He does play baseball. I just wanted to remind you folks and find out, maybe seek some guidance. We have a new athletic director, Michelle Sonner. If she is even close to as good an athletic director as she is a teacher, it's probably one of the best hires you guys made in maybe the last 10 years. I mean, she's my older daughter's favorite teacher. She's my son's favorite teacher, and having sat through her class, she brings energy that you just have to admire. The reason I'm kind of bringing this up is everybody's asked to do a lot. Teachers, you folks in administration, I'm well aware of that. But we're, timing-wise, we're starting to get close to when the baseball season begins. And Michelle is very creative, and she started programs from scratch and achieved great success with them. And parents would like to help support this solution, but we're not really crystal clear on what's the plan, if there's anything in the works to do something to the baseball field. Anybody who wants to could go out and take a look at it and evaluate whether they think it's ready or if there's something that needs to be done. I can tell you a bad hop is very likely to happen on that field quite commonly because of its condition. And they're really good people. Their parents are really involved at Novato. There's a fantastic new athletic director. And I know you folks are aware of the situation and want to do what's best. So I just encourage you, you can reach out to me or to Matt or to anyone you would like on the parent side, and we'll try to support whatever can be done. But I just don't want the season to roll around and to find out that there was nothing in the plans. So I was just hoping that we could work together on that. And I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Sorry, let's move on to our discussion action item. Yvonne is here to begin the presentation of the 17-18 single plans for student achievement with our elementary schools this evening.
All right, good evening and congratulations, President Butler. That's my first time saying that. Thank you, Board of Trustees. So tonight we have our elementary principals here to present their site plans for student achievements. Their site plans are aligned to our district goals around equity, student success, staff success, and community and parent engagement. So that's how the plans have been written, with action steps, strategies aligned to their funding sources, specifically around their federal, Title I, Title II, and their supplemental, also known as LCFF, that you have represented there. So this evening, after the presentations, the superintendent and staff recommend approval of the 2017-2018 single plans for student achievement from Luz Sutton, Linwood, Loma Verde, Olive, Pleasant Valley, Rancho, and San Ramon. And that's the order that the presentations will happen. So will be Luz Sutton first, Linwood, Loma, Olive, PV, Rancho, and San Ramon. So that's the lineup for this evening. We do have the PowerPoint, and I believe you have copies of the slides as well. And I believe our principals have about, you cannot go first. I just found it. Oh, okay. When do you want to go? Oh. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, we will start with, we will have Luz Sutton go last. So we'll do this. So let's go Linwood, Loma, Olive, PV, Rancho, San Ramon, and Luz Sutton last. All right, we will figure this out. So here we go. We are flexible, adaptable, and we have Principal Andy Klein up to bat first. Thank you.
All right, and don't let me, first of all, good evening. Thank you for having us. Don't let me forget, Yvonne, I want to hand you our officially signed version. It's like signed as of like 3 hours ago. So it's now ready to go and be official. So we have a couple slides that you already know from the way we've seen the secondary principals present their site plans that we're going to go fairly quickly through. This first slide is actually featuring our new NUSD report feature that Alex Perez built for each of us. That's been super helpful. And it just gives you a breakdown of the demographics for our site. All right, I have mission and vision. I put on two different slides for you simply because they're very long. We actually have an entire poster size mission and vision that was developed about 4 years ago through a collaborative process at Linwood. And then, so rather than have me read each of these things out to you, I'll just allow it to be displayed there for a moment, and the folks at home can see it too. And then we'll skip over to the piece that starts to move into the vision. And I wanted to point out to you also at the very bottom, I put a little asterisk because we've seen some tremendous work done by our dual immersion task force this year in developing a dual immersion specific vision as well that I believe we had a chance to share with y'all when you formally approved the program back in April. All right, good stuff. So we're supposed to feature 3 or 4 really good things that are happening. So we have the Linwood Way that we have developed and is being formally introduced to our community this Friday in my principal's letter that's going out. This is a cultural core values document that we have as a staff that we've worked on together. All of our staff members have had opportunities to give input, classified, certificated. Every single person on campus there has had a chance to look it over. Rather than take the time to sketch it all out for you here, it is one that we're going to be posting onto our website and sharing with the community at Linwood with our Constella app as well that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then it'll be going out and posted through my principal letter going out this Friday as well. but it is basically saying this is what we call out as what we want to live out as a staff. And we hope that that's modeling for our students, our families, everything like that, exactly what we want to exemplify. And we're going to actually actively solicit some feedback from our parents, from our students, to be able to say how well are we living out these things that we say that we want to. And so it's going to be an active data point, and it'll be something we continue to work upon. It's meant to be as relevant today in just making sure we have a very strong staff culture. It's an amazing staff culture at Linwood. I feel very fortunate to be blessed to be there. However, we also know that we're a school that's going to be in transition over a period of years here with dual immersion rolling out. And so we really want to make sure this is a foundational stance that we have of the type of people that we want to see on board with us. And then we have a men's group that's starting on December 18th, 6:30 p.m. Just confirmed today. We are meeting at Chevy's, so those men watching at home, if you want to mark it on your calendars. And that's really exciting to be able to see what typically is one of our demographics that obviously is really influential in our children's lives, but historically is not able to be as actively involved during the school day. And so this will be all sorts of men that might be that male role model in that child's life who we invite to come and connect better with the school and know how they can be more actively involved, even if they can't be there present during the actual school day. So we also are excited to announce that we're doing some action research on homework practices. So we decided at our last faculty meeting last Wednesday that as a staff, we are going to, between midwinter break and spring break, the dates you see there, we're going to be spending a couple months studying some revised homework practices that, as we've been reading up on what is a more equitable and effective way to approach homework, we hope will bring about strong results, better results for kids and for families. But we're going in with an open mind, and we'll see exactly what that research bears out so that we know better what kind of practices to carry forward after that. And finally, our Twitter feed, #LinwoodTigers. Just want to point that out. That is something that was introduced at ADCO last year, actually, that we've been very actively putting down and documenting and using as a visual journal all the different great things that the kids are doing at Linwood. And so I encourage you to, if you just go to Twitter, you don't have to have an account. Just look up #LinwoodTigers, and you'll see a lot of the amazing stuff they're doing. All right, so what does the data say? So first of all, we identified that we have two focal goal areas that our data very clearly points to. These are a lot of multiple measures that go into this. This is work that we do actively through our data team as part of our MCF P5 grant. So we've identified in the shortened version, main idea and detail, explicitly within expository text. That's our ELA focal goal. And the math focal goal is place value, and in particular, its application. And we'll talk a little more about those as we get into some of our key strategies that we'll be doing too, or you may have seen it mentioned a few times in the written version of the site plan. Our successes also we had an increase of 9 in our overall ELA cohort growth just for the whole school. And then you can see the socioeconomically disadvantaged and Latino groups, we saw some phenomenal growth. Plus 21 and plus 23. These are percentages of students who are proficient. So that's phenomenal to see us grow by that much. Our need areas. We still absolutely have a huge need for our English language learners to continue progressing, especially with the CASP. We find that sometimes we get some stronger measures through things like CELT or our local benchmarks that don't always show up in the CASP. And so you'll see in our key strategies, we really try to focus in on more critical thinking items that we can do to be able to really allow our English language learner students to be as well equipped as any other student to be able to then apply what they're doing within the CASP, because there's so much application that they have to take and be able to actually authentically utilize it in that test. And then we need more continued metacognition growth and frequency. We saw some tremendous growth already from what was a pretty low baseline to start in our very first EduSnap data collection time. And I'm looking forward to, we actually have our results that are going to be shared with teachers 2 days from now as they come to visit our site. And so I'm really excited to see what kind of results that this fall's measure has brought about as well. All right. So we talked a little bit about critical thinking. So one of the key things we did over the course of the last calendar year, so it started, partway through last school year, is we went through all of our different ELA units in our curriculum, and we identified depth of knowledge level 3 and 4 questions. So levels 3 and 4 are the two highest levels out of the 4 levels that depth of knowledge offers, versus having just like a level 1 where it's just the basic rote or yes or no or true or false type questions. This is asking kids to actually take and apply what their learning is. And so this is one thing we did for each of our different ELA units at every single grade level. And so now we're in the process where we actually get to be utilizing what we mined for all year long last year. Focal goal 2, or focal area 2, is we really want to make sure that we ramp up our oral language production, in particular for our English language learner students. And so you can see we have a mixture of utilization of our different teachers between the ELEC/ELD toolkit and the Clark Consulting Team strategies. That's being done daily in our ELD periods as well. And number 3, we really want to build stronger relational connectivity with Linwood families, focusing upon a cohesive school culture with the transition to dual immersion. This one's very near and dear to my heart. As thrilled as I am about dual immersion, we had an amazing meeting last night where it was just really fun to see the excitement that our families that are already with us as preschool, TK, and kinders already have for it. We had one person out of 25 people who were in attendance last night who opted not to have their child sign up for the program. And respectfully, there's always going to be a few folks who that's not the right fit for their child, and I totally understand that. But to see that we had everybody else that jazzed up about it was really exciting. Having said that, we know it's going to be a 5 to 6 year rollout. And so we want to make sure Linwood retains a very strong, cohesive culture, as I mentioned at the outset. And so these are a list of all the different, of some of the different things that we're doing, but we're being very intentional about having relationships be the focus for everything that we do with our community this year. We're hosting a P5 learning walk next Wednesday. I invite, if you're curious, if you want to come, it's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock next Wednesday. We'd love to have you. And during that time, we'll be talking about a lot of these different initiatives we'll be doing. All right, in conclusion, Linwood staff and students have worked hard to see the incremental, well-aligned gains that we've made in recent years. It has been incremental. With the renewed focus that the dual immersion program brings to our schools, subgroup needs, and cultural identity as a school, we're poised to see academic and social gains explode. It's a fun word to end on, explode. All right. What questions can I answer for y'all?
Questions from the board, comments? Anybody? Trustee Nell.
On your focal number 1, I was just wondering, like, you could maybe give us an example of how you're going to be utilizing what you've learned in this coming year. Just some specific example.
Is it the right slide that
Yeah,
I'm
that's the
referring
right
to
one.
here? Okay. So when you look at like level 1 or 2 depth of knowledge questions, it really is either simple recall, like I said, basic yes, no, true, false kind of things, maybe even giving an opinion, but not necessarily giving a rationale behind it. So when you get into level 3 and 4, that's where you start having to justify your answers for things. You start taking what your learning might be in content and then applying it in some way. When you get to level 4, if you look at it in the DOK wheel, it's almost all production. It's almost all that they're actually doing some kind of a project or applying it in some authentic way, whether it's in debate form or putting it into a physical artifact that they're going to be developing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Aguila?
For your second to last page, what does the data say? Just in the areas
Is this
needed.
the one? Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't have it in front of me, the same packet. Is that the one we're referring to?
Yes.
Going back to the data.
Oh, the data.
Yeah, that one?
Yes,
Okay.
and the areas needed. Do you have specific? Can you talk a little bit more how you plan to to work with that, with the math and the EL. So you mentioned a little bit, but do you have a plan to
Yeah.
make sure that it does happen?
Absolutely. So the two key strategies you'll see featured in our site plan are the two key strategies you'll see featured in our site plan under the math goal are, first of all, vertical articulation around that focal goal in particular. So math obviously is this big, so trying to narrow it down to say, okay, if we sit down with our pre-K partners, with our San Jose partners in 6th grade, and we have some time up and down with grade levels to be able to communicate about what is working, what isn't working, and what the most effective strategies are for students, that's helped us tremendously already with starting to get better aligned so we can prepare kids to be that much stronger even going beyond Linwood. So the vertical articulation, I think, is key. But the other one that's exciting is we wrote this into our P5 grant back in March, actually, and it's been neat to see it being implemented already. All the PBL units that our teachers had developed, we have a common commitment that we've now gone back and infused each of them with some kind of place value, real-life application problems. So you might have a PBL where you're developing a way to possibly chart from Europe into the New World, and develop exactly what the right strategy is as you start to plan and see if you can beat, Christopher Columbus or whoever else over there. But there's lots of mathematical opportunities to be able to build those kind of things in. So we've made sure that those kind of math questions that are being worked into the work is very focused upon place value. Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Andy.
Thank
very
you.
much. Who's the next victim?
Okay, next we're gonna have Loma Verde. We have Tanya come on up to present her site plan.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good. Welcome
Good.
back.
Thank you. Someone said, who's the next victim? Just be kind. I have the brain now of a mother of 2, and if I can compose sentences, it'll be good. That's what I see from my own parents. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share what's happening at Loma Verde. So we'll just go through the slideshow. You see the statistics for Loma Verde this year. Our English language population is about 35%. Our Hispanic Latinos are a little over 46%. So the population of Loma Verde has changed in the past 13 years that I've been at the school, but in the past few years, it's kind of staying consistent around those numbers. Last year, we worked as a community to come up with a new vision statement building off of the graduate profile that the district worked so hard in creating. And it was really interesting process to go through because as a group, we also landed on kind of those skills that we want to make sure that students have, and also what kinds of people that we wanted to help produce and guide through. So, just highlighted some of the words. And making sure that we're keeping in tradition with our MCF P3 grant and adding our preschool into that fold of our vision statement. Over the past 3 years as being part of the MCF grant for our preschool through 3rd grade, we have been really focusing on developing a culture of caring. Last year we started school meetings, which this year are occurring on Wednesdays. So the entire school is in the multipurpose room, and we're celebrating students, we're singing songs, we're chanting, kind of bringing the whole school community together to refresh and to feel like we belong together and are part of something bigger. This year we've started our Student Advisory Council for the 5th grade in partnership with the North Bay Security Group and the Youth Leadership Institute, and students had to apply for it, and now they meet twice a month and are really kind of taking leadership responsibility in how the playground's going to look like and what rules can come up for the game. It kind of started with them feeling like, do we have to be a part of this? And now they're really excited and eager to meet. We've also been trying out flexible seating as part of that culture to see, you know, what is best for students and how they're going to learn. And that's a small picture of a classroom that uses scoop rockers, and they just kind of snuggle in there and are able to move around. We also have, you know, different size desks. We actually have a 5th grade classroom that's moved away from desks and has just tables. So allowing for that collaboration and for kids of groups of kids to sit together. Project-based learning, focusing on training. And one of the really exciting things that we did last year was a school-wide project-based PBL. That was the box project. And the teachers and the community would like to continue that. And so our instructional leadership team will work together to pick another project that we can do going all the way from preschool to 5th grade, and then do a walk around and a share out of that. And continuing the use of our rubrics that have been created for us for collaboration and communication, and trying to weave them into as many different facets that are occurring within the classroom as possible. So here's our data, and I kind of debated with this slide because there are numbers on there that we are not very proud of, and are trying to learn from and grow from and focus on as the years continue. So what are our successes? We really saw success with our 5th grade with the way that we structured the time within the classroom. And so we saw growth across pretty much all subgroups except for our English language learners. So if there's one lesson that we have in front of us, that the numbers that we keep looking at and are really, really focused on, is our English language learners and how are we going to support them. Because if we can support the ELD, the English language development, then that's going to have repercussions and effects that are going to be seen in math and English language arts. We are really, really fortunate because our teachers were looking for strategies and what do we do with our English language learners that's going to make sure that they're being successful. So what that leads me to is to have the support of the district for allowing us to send our teachers to be CCT trained, which are the strategies of the Clark Consulting Team, and you know, mandating that we're doing 45 minutes of ELD and helping us through the district coaches to figure out how are we going to do that? What does the day look like? What does the week look like? How do we make sure that those are embedded throughout, and we're providing sentence frames and sentence strips for all our students to make sure that we really are changing the access for those students. Another one of our goals that working with our MCF grant is data protocols and making sure that we're really tightening the data loop for our ELA and math. So looking at formative assessments and not waiting till we have a MAP score, because that's looking at trimester. And if you're looking trimester to trimester, you're not able to affect the amount of change that you really want to see. So really tightening that loop. Focused interventions, so making sure that within the small groups, within the classrooms, we have enough small group intervention happening. That's, again, ongoing based on the data and is progressing week to week to week. And increased school-home communication. One of the biggest ahas from last year was instead of, you know, information coming later and then us having to be kind of on the defense to say this is what's happening at our school, how do we make sure that we're putting it out there? What are some of the great things that are occurring at our school, and how do we inform our community to know, like, this is a concern, but we are already addressing it. So increased communication weekly, coming up with protocols across the grade levels. You know, first grade, how are we going to communicate with parents? What is the form of communication? How often is it going to go? What is it going to look like? So in the spring, we met as a staff and really laid it out, you know, grade by grade. What is the communication going to look like? What mode are we going to use? How frequent is it going to be? Any questions? Yes.
In a lot of homes today, people that used to have telephone landlines don't. They have cell phones or text message, or they use other methods. Have you looked at that in your communications plans, the different modalities of communication?
Yes. So Classroom Manager, Classroom Messenger was an app that actually our kindergarten teachers kind of started using, and then it you know, kind of got attention from our parents as they move across the grade levels. So currently, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade uses Classroom Messenger, which is, you know, you can get it on your phone, you can get it through your email. It has those multiple ways of access points. And then our third, fourth, and fifth grade is still using more email communication for our parents to keep them informed. But the goal is to come up with one kind of universal across the grade levels communication tool that's easy for parents to access and easy for teachers to communicate with.
Thank Tom. No, I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah. Trustee
Trustee
Cooper.
Nell, you humor me. So my question is kind of revolves around the data, and what's the best, how do you gather the data? What tool do you use to analyze the data? I know Schoolzilla's kind of waned a little bit, come and gone. So map testing, tell me about that a little bit.
So map testing happens depending on the grade level, but 3 times a year or twice a year. And
Please, by the way.
I'm sorry?
I'm asking you to do it, please. I wasn't ordering you to do it.
It coincides with the trimesters. So when report cards are coming out, you know, that's where the assessment's happening. But that's kind of the big picture. We're still trying to come up with a correlation between how students perform on MAPS test compared with how they do on CASP. We haven't been able to find quite a linear relationship, you know, to kind of predict, okay, well, these groups of students perform this way on MAPS, so that's going to indicate how they're going to be. There's still kind of some discrepancies between that. The other kind of data that we want to use is more readily available. So a unit test. You know, teachers come together, look at the unit test and say, okay, well, these 5 students in my classroom, they need, you know, to kind of review this, repeat this. That's going to be my small group for the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks. But keeping that loop going, so that giving teachers that time to sit down together with a common assessment and go through what are the areas of need, base the goals on them for just smaller cycles. So it's not, you know, we're waiting for 12 weeks, but it's something that's happening within 4 to 6 week cycle. Yeah.
Now, Trustee Nell.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about when you're looking ahead, your focused intervention, and just explain a little bit about how that's going to be organized. Do you have categories of focused intervention? I mean, are we going to track this intervention? Are we using the data to target specific things? Is this as formal as 504 type of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're not as formal as the 504, but we are. So we've been looking at data, again, kind of the big picture, but now really honing down on our students that are receiving ELA support. So we have a reading teacher, literacy coach that's working with small groups from first grade to 5th grade. So monitoring those students' progress. Pullouts, yes. We also have a math differentiation teacher that works 3 days a week for part of the day in the morning, and she's doing challenge groups and intervention groups, and again, those are our pullout groups. So monitoring to make sure, again, they're flexible. So it's not, a student didn't perform well on the first 2 unit tests in math and now is kind of stuck for the rest of the year in intervention, but seeing, have they mastered that concept? How do we keep them fluidly moving through? But the biggest push for that focused intervention is within the classroom. to make sure that there is small group instruction. Andy referenced the EduSnap data that's coming out with the help of the MCF grant. And one of the things they monitor is how much time are students receiving small group instruction. That's a group of students that's 8 or less that is with a teacher. So when we looked at that as a school, our percentage and our time that students were spending in small groups was not very high. So how do we increase that within the structure of the classroom so it's not always a reliant on kids getting pulled out or going to a different teacher for that intervention? And that's where the connection with the smaller data cycle is, so that we can keep those small groups rotating through based on the need that's current. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so I suppose it's two parts. So the pullouts, I'm curious as to how those individuals who run the pullouts give feedback or input through you or the homeroom teacher. Tell me how that accountability is made.
So we have a data team, again, part of, I referenced the MCF grant too because they're so much because it's amazing work that we're doing through that. So we have a data team that of teachers, and myself included, and our reading teacher, that will collect that data and monitor in our meetings to say, okay, well, this child was performing, whatever the SRA criteria. The SRA is a program we use for our intervention for English language arts. In 3 weeks, they've moved up to here. So what are the next steps for what this student needs? And that communication between our intervention teachers and our classroom teachers is constant. They're at the staff meetings, they're coming to their grade level meetings to give them that input and share how students are performing. So it's really a relationship where everyone's working together and we're having those meetings about the students.
So tell me a little bit more about the headwinds that you have with the in-class groups of 8 that you talked about. What we want to do more, but what makes it difficult?
For the small group instruction, just making sure that, again, you are basing that on data, so there's relevant data being analyzed within a 6-week period, and goals being based off of that. Another difficulty that sometimes will come up in a classroom is, what are all the other kids doing? So setting that up in the beginning of the year to make sure that those norms and protocols and structures are set up in the classroom, where students are actively engaged in their learning while not actively with a teacher. So, allowing for different centers. We use a program called Daily 5. So students are in different groups, still accessing the same material, but maybe someone's doing a vocabulary exercise. There's another group listening to stories and responding. And then there's a small group that's with a teacher. So making sure that that's happening for our language arts and our math during both time periods.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Mack?
A lot of this is data driven, and generally I'd ask this of all the principals, but for your campus in particular, let's start here. How's the data going for you? Are you able to get the data you need to, because obviously a lot of this is driven by what you see in the numbers, and are you getting those numbers, or is this a very manual process?
It can be a very manual process, pulling, sometimes the reports that MAPS is building within its system that you're able to pull aren't exactly the reports you're looking for, or they're not normed in the way, or they're not able to pull out. So if you want to pull out, all of a subgroup of Latino students, sometimes it's not doing that in either they're not labeled correctly, or they were, input and there was some sort of error on that end. And also, keeping that updated. So as we get new students, we have huge turnover sometimes where there's lots of new students coming in, and we don't have data for them or scores. So how do we, put that in? The other thing that we don't quite have as far as data management is putting in the formative assessment. So teachers have grade books, but they're all different and they're typing it in. And so you're trying to kind of if you're comparing third grade to fourth grade, you know, teachers in third grade have a different system that works for them. So coming up with a platform that really that's talking to each other and providing the same kind of information. Are they all tagged as ELs? Are they all tagged as, you know, socioeconomically disadvantaged? And that's usually teachers keeping that and marking that by hand and going into whatever Excel spreadsheets they're making.
Okay, so it's all one-off spreadsheets, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Trustee
scary.
So I just wanted to applaud you on sharing with us your successes, but also lessons learned. And I always rather hear that from the principals than hearing it from the community. So thank you for that and for being aware of it and open and honest and sharing that with us. I always look for that too with all the principals. So thank you.
Well, that's hard data for
Yeah.
for all of us to look at. For teachers, they're working really hard, but it's not to look at to point fingers and say we're not, you know, doing something right. But it's to look at and say, well, what else can we do, or what can be done differently, so to make sure that we're achieving what we want to be achieving, because we obviously want our students to succeed.
Right. And that's just a sign that, you know, if you're aware of it, it's just a sign that you're working on it.
Yeah.
And you're moving forward. And yeah, it's not a shame blame thing. It's just, it's a good thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Scott?
When you were answering Trustee Mack's question, you mentioned high turnover. Are you talking about teachers, students?
Yeah, I misspoke. That was the mother brain. I mean new students coming in. So it's not so much a turnover as an influx during the school year of students coming in, registering. You know, we just registered a new kindergartner today. And so kind of keeping on top of their data and making sure that they're, you know, in the system, that when MAPS comes around, you know, everyone's in there, they can take the test, and then sometimes you don't have something to compare it to because you have now a cohort of 4 or 5 students that are brand new in a grade level. So making sure that we're on top of their data, even though we don't have a historical progression for them.
Okay. All right. I just, when you said high turnover,
Yeah.
I went, we have
Yeah, I
kids
know,
coming and going? Have I not seen the data?
No,
Okay.
I heard that, and I was
Whoa,
like, no,
what?
that's
What?
not what you mean.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, you know, once again, this is a question probably going to apply to everybody. So I would invite you guys to talk to these challenges as well as you come up. So
Now you have time to
sorry,
think about it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're the sacrificial one here. But so once again, back to the data. So are you facing equal challenges in terms of matching up data from prior years for this particular child and getting kind of true cohort analysis? Or are you just getting point in time information and then using that, or?
Cohort data is always kind of a pencil and paper. You know, we can do the big, like what comes off of CASP, and we can do that just like the big groups, and we can compare that to how did they do in 4th grade and compare it to 5th grade.
But you have to do that every year and go back and find them, or is it kept somewhere and then you add to it? Is what I'm getting at.
It's kept on my computer. Is
Well,
that-
okay,
yeah.
so catch as you can.
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay.
As far as maps and trying to do that cohort, it becomes a little bit more difficult to see the progression of students, and you can, you know,
is the
the
ideal.
different ways to measure.
Okay.
And I know that's a big gripe of teachers, to make sure that we're comparing cohorts and seeing that progress, but that is another added layer of data
Okay.
crunching.
Other principals, bring that up if you got it, please.
One more, Trustee Aguila?
Thanks.
Just one more question. Parent involvement. How are you approaching our parents, and do you have parents being involved? Are they not being involved? And how are you communicating with them?
Yeah, we are so fortunate and blessed to have an amazing parent community. Our PTO, you know, it just bends over backwards to make sure that teachers are supported and students are supported. You know, looking at some of the data and sharing it with them, they are looking for ways to help. We already have a Wednesday math mentor group that has started to work with our 4th graders, because we identified that as a need, looking at our 3rd grade data. And we have dads coming in Wednesday morning at 7:30 and pretty much working with either one student or 2 students. And these aren't dads of just 4th graders, they're dads across our school community who are saying, okay, I've got 45 minutes, assign me a student or 2, and I will work with them on math. And so our 4th graders that are still working on addition and subtraction, we're bringing in the parents to come in and support them. So our parents kind of are ready to jump at any opportunity that we provide.
That's great. Thank you. And you're still doing the exercise program in the mornings?
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Great.
In Motion happens on 4 days, and then on Wednesday we do our school meeting. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
come join us.
So appreciate all the comments you gave about data. 'Cause that was one of mine. I saw you had data team in there, and I was like, yay, a data team. Because I think every school really needs that lead teacher or group of teachers who can drive the data and know what to look at and help make decisions and strategies and instructional needs and things
Yeah.
like that for each
Right.
student. So thank you, and great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Olive's next. You need to be kind.
They will exceed me all the time. That's my goal, is that they exceed me all the time. Okay. Okay, all right. This is our enrollment data, and I want to explain some of the data up here. Is what we've noticed this year is a change in some of our demographics. We are seeing an increase of our students who are homeless and foster youth, or home insecure. And that's a big change for us this year. We've always had a small group of homeless or foster youth. It has been increasing. When you look at our demographics, we are in declining enrollment, just like the entire district. So we're down to 315. But we also have a large percentage of our students who are special education students. And that's represented in our data at about 13%. I just want to have you guys note that is our yearbook picture. Every year we start a new tradition. We are not going to take the staid, controlled photo. We're going to move on to something happy.
Yes.
Okay. Olive values student engagement through learning and collaboration, critical thinking, communication, while supporting the individual learning style and social emotional development. So that social emotional development really stemmed from a lot of the conversations about the change in our demographics this year. And it really, we're noticing our students are having a lot more difficulty managing their internal regulation in the classroom, and primarily our littles. Our littles are really having a difficult time. So bringing in our strong counseling component through BACR, we've also looked at trying to provide additional counseling, which I'll go into later. In the picture you look at on the far left are some great collaborative activities and critical thinking activities in a first grade classroom with regards to habitat and examining habitat and how an animal manages to live through that habitat, some of our technology. In that middle picture, it's our yearly October celebration through our cardboard challenge, and it's a great opportunity for our students to problem solve outside the box, to think creatively, literally outside the box, to think creatively. Yeah, and our expansion last year from our cardboard challenge from a 3-5 traditionally to a school-wide using our NGSS principles has been a wonderful asset. We've all enjoyed it. In the picture you see some fourth graders helping our kindergarten students. In the next couple pictures you see our two students with our special needs teacher, and then some of the data that is being talked about in the bulletin boards about how we examine math. Our amazing olive sharks. We've really put a lot of energy into making sure that all of our teachers are presently or will be completely trained in CCT by the end of the year. So Kevin Clark Consulting and Training, which will really help our ELD reconfiguration. We have about 1/3 of our students who are English language learners, so we recombine our students for every week based upon their ELD levels to make sure that we focus on strong vocabulary, good listening and speaking skills, and good grammar. Then you saw tonight our wonderful kindness crew, and they are amazing. So all of reflections, we're looking at our successes. Per the CDE website, our English learner progress has increased significantly at 71%, which is actually a 10% gain. And our hope is to increase that with our CCT practices. An increased student collaboration, communication, and critical thinking skills school-wide with grade level swaps, student conversations focused on explaining their thinking and explaining their work. Then again, a focus on our social emotional development through P3 training for teachers, second step instruction, counseling, kindness crew, student council, and peacekeepers. What we additionally found that we needed is that our wonderful BACR counselor is here at our on-site 3 days a week. She usually sees students individually, but our students aren't managing a lot of the things that some students are managing, that interpersonal social skills out in the playground, how to navigate asking to play, how to navigate rejection with play, how to navigate changing in activities from one thing to another in a classroom. So out of our site budget, we've allocated $2,500 to hire 1 extra day for counseling for just social skills groups. And that social skills groups will be centered around a topic, either friendships, grief and loss, managing anger and frustrations, whatever we find common areas for, we're going to create those groups, and those groups will be beginning on January 12th. The next step is math achievement. Consistently, as you saw throughout our district, we are struggling with our math achievement. We are looking at tomorrow our Mars task analysis. We are using AVID and ELD training and activities to look at increasing our math vocabulary, because if a student is able to manage the math vocabulary, they can manage the next step. In fact, I'm going to read you the cutest little thing you've ever heard. This is directly from one of our students, and this is an English language learner. And this is a sample question. The question is, write all the names you can think of that could describe a 4-sided shape. The students answer: Mom, Dad, Lacey, and Marilyn. Adorable, but obviously going to miss the mark. So really focusing on strong ELD practices. We're hoping. Yeah. We are hoping. There's some data here, and really it's hard to tell, but it really does show a significant decline in our achievement. Olive has an amazing school site council this year. We have 3 incredible dads on our school site council, and one is an amazing statistician. And so at our most recent school site council meeting, we had the discussion of, is 5% going to make it? And as one of the dads shared, let's just talk belly buttons, because we're talking data and it doesn't relate to a student. And if we're asking for a 5% growth when we are at 0 in some cases with our English language learners, that is not even a whole person, okay? So when we analyzed what a 5% growth looks like, it doesn't maintain our progress and exceed our students' progress. So we're pushing the boundaries. We're asking for 10% growth. Are the growth police going to arrest us? Probably not. But we are asking our teachers to really analyze the data, look at each and every student, and see how we can push that. On the far right side, you can see story, problem, unpacking the problem. We've talked about how to unpack a math problem, specifically for an English language learner, using the ELD, CCT strategies, and AVID. And those are overlapping strategies. So those conversations, and you'll see later in a picture, one of those practices. So we're trying to build good math vocabulary, not just in practice, but in conceptual understanding. So the next steps. This is just a snapshot of our ELA SES students. If you were looking at the students who are exceeding, you're looking at our third graders and fourth graders at third graders at 5%, our fourth graders at 0%, and our fifth graders at 5%. The students who've met, 10% third and 20% fourth and 13% fifth. So we really are in the zeros and the teens. That's completely unacceptable. So in terms of how we're approaching our intervention is moving away from looking at, unfortunately, the bottom 20% to looking at the 21st% to the 49th percent, and making sure that those are the students who are going to be targeted in the after school or before school intervention. We already have in place school day interventions for those bottom 20%. So we're now needing to target our 21st to 49th percentile students, and specifically we're going to move towards a math conversation, because even though these numbers are low, our math scores are lower. These are ELA. ELA specifically for the subgroup of socioeconomically disadvantages. So the right picture is a ELA, or actually an ELD lesson by one of our teachers. So I talked about some of the professional development that our teachers have gone through. We've gone through an enormous amount. We're kind of drinking from the fire hose right now. We are one of the new schools who have joined P3, so we're drinking through the fire hose at P3. In fact, on the bottom right frame, you see just yesterday, I had at Olive, San Ramon, Pleasant Valley, Rancho, and Olive all together, and we had Nancy Dohm present to us the critical race theory, which was amazing. On the far left, you see Adela, who is showing you some of her AVID strategies with really strong organizational skills, and a 3-column notes, which is strictly AVID, but it also relates to English language learners. Then in the middle, you have our PBL. Ms. Rosoff is PBL on steroids, if you know Ms. Rosoff. So they are at, last week, they were creating marsh animals to go out to the Hamilton wetlands out of recycled materials. Okay, so how cool is that? Seriously cool. Moving to the future, we continue to work on our professional development, as I said, ELD, P3, AVID, and math. Our P3 grant provides us data analysis, and the team share and support all teachers to become strong data consumers, because that's really what we need to be, is strong data consumers on both formative and summative assessments for instructional groupings. And those groupings need to change frequently so we don't track our students. And we need to increase our focus on building relationships with our students and social emotional growth via counseling and second steps, and making sure that every child feels recognized and needed. That's what we're doing this year. That's a snapshot of what we're doing. Not a whole lot.
Okay, questions?
I want to know more about these marsh animals.
Well, they will be on display. They're in progress. It's going to take. Yeah, well, actually, you're not going to have it here. You're going to have to go out to the Hamilton wetlands.
Get muddy.
So moving into, as a P3 school,
Okay.
a great win for you, I'm assuming.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
Super. You know, as I said, we're drinking from the fire hose. We are seriously drinking through the fire hose. But I think a couple things that it brings to us is the ability to have good, strong data, because it hasn't been present at all of our schools. And that's
Agree with you on
puts us at a disadvantage. I just had my reading intervention teacher send out an intervention update. All of the students that she sees in reading intervention through a SIPS program have moved up except for 2 students, and those are new students. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great. Question, Trustee Miller.
Maybe this is a question for the superintendent. We had a conversation at this board table about collecting data, and it was expensive data. It was actual in the classroom, minute by minute, how students were spending their time, how teachers were spending their time, and they basically had to have a monitor, a human being in there.
So that's EduSnap.
Is that
That's EduSnap. That's actually happening at all of this week. Yesterday, today, Thursday and Friday, they'll be in again next week, and they're taking all that data. And because we're a new school, we don't know what our expectations are and what that would look like. I've seen the EduSnap data from the P3 schools. It's amazing.
Yep.
Our teachers are really excited about seeing the results of that.
Cool.
All schools are getting that now.
Yeah, all at school.
Wow. So does it happen like 1 week out of a semester, or?
So
it's pricey because somebody's got to be there.
Right. They're sitting there with their iPads and their phones, and they're like minute by minute taking that data. So it's usually spread off by 2 weeks because they have only so many data collectors.
So they come in once. How frequently?
So they're going to come in twice. This year for us, once. Okay. But you know what? Once is a great baseline.
Compared to 0, once
You're
is a
right,
lot.
right. Once is a great
Counting
baseline.
belly buttons.
Right, when
once
we're
is-
talking belly buttons, it moves us.
But then what you learn from that, you take as a site. And,
Right.
And work from that.
Right.
It's not, you can't rely on that continuously.
Right.
Okay.
But it gives us a start.
Gives you a start, yeah. Trustee Mack.
Forgive me for not knowing the answer to this question, but is Avid new for you guys? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I asked our upper grade teachers, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers to participate in the Avid initiative. They went in the summer, and I went in October, and so we're all at the upper grade trained except for 1 teacher. So we're marrying the Avid strategies, and they're very similar to the P3 strategies, which are great. It kind of marries all the practices of CCT, P3, and Avid. In fact, that's what we started off at the beginning of the year, is to how can we streamline all these initiatives and find commonality.
Yeah, I'd really like to see the results of that next year and maybe
Yeah.
expand it. Assuming right now it's just your campus, maybe not.
Lou Sutton is
Okay.
also
All right.
Avid.
Great to hear. I just know it's fantastically successful at the high school level,
Mhm.
and why not bring it down earlier?
Right.
So let's do it, because math.
And actually, I was in a meeting yesterday with a consultant regarding math. She has a math publishing company and writes math textbooks. She happens to be the mother-in-law of my speech therapist.
Mhm.
So she says, "What do you guys need?" And I said, "Well, what can you offer?" So we're talking about coaching and math work with my teachers.
Great.
So.
Second question. So the data guys. So I'm curious how much time you think they spent to kind of corral all the data and make it manageable for you guys.
So there's a couple answers to that. Marrying the MAP and the CASP data and making it real on time took just plugging it in and hand calculating. The difficulty is our primary kids and our primary teachers need more data points. So inputting formative data would be a great benefit, but there's got to be someone to input that data. We just have the Mars task, which has been added into that database, which is a great addition. Prior to that, it wasn't.
Okay.
But we also have the writing benchmarks, which are not in a database. So in terms of my ability to tell anyone how our students are doing in writing, I can't. I mean, do the teachers know? Sure. But do I know as a principal collectively how Greg Mack did from second grade to third grade? I have no idea how you did.
That's what we need. Yeah, thank you. We'll work on that.
Trustee Cooper?
And to kind of dovetail on with Trustee Mack there, this question for Superintendent Hogaboom, do you, I mean, it sounds like this might be something we can, it's a problem at all of our schools.
Data?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I'd like to
So
see that.
one of the nice things is the P3 grant. I mean, Jan Derby crunches a lot of the numbers, which is helpful, but as they're talking about, those aren't all formative assessments, so they do get data that we're not doing. We have a meeting next Monday. Is it Monday? We have a meeting next Monday with the Marin Community Foundation, one with Jan and Don Jen, and to try to kind of see what are all the data needs we have right now. And then the Marin Community Foundation, when we met with them, we basically said we need to try, Schoolzilla didn't work. We really want to try to free up Alex Perez to do a lot of this for us, since he knows how to do it. And a lot of the districts that are doing it have to hire their own people. So if we could free him up to just exclusively create whatever reports and data these guys need to get in our teacher's hand, we'd like to try that. We can't afford to do that right now because he's got a million other things. So after that meeting on Monday, we're going to try to demonstrate to the Marin Community Foundation the need to do that. And hopefully we're hoping to get a grant from them to use him second semester to do that. And then we'd hire a replacement to do whatever he's doing now. So that's what we're keeping our fingers crossed, is after that meeting next Monday, that'll give us the information we need so I can talk to MCF about funding him to try that out.
Perfect, worth a shot. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? No? Oh, Trustee Aguila?
I just wanted to say that in the process of looking at data and finding issues that you need to work on and all this stuff, you're moving the school forward. And despite
trying.
everything else that happens in everybody's lives. And so just wanted to thank you for
My pleasure.
moving the school forward.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. All right, next we have Pleasant Valley. We have Dana, Principal Dana Sedan. Come on up.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. Congratulations, and thank you for this opportunity. We also at Pleasant Valley are experiencing declining enrollment. Last year we were at 500, this year we're at 463. But in general, our demographics are pretty much the same. This year we have 24 English language learners out of that, 68 Hispanic Latino, 57 socioeconomically disadvantaged, and 43 special ed students. Our vision is actually one that we did about 4 years ago, but I think because it's something that we need to revisit because a lot has happened in the past 4 years, and there's been some significant changes. We are inspired by the new motto by NUSD. I really liked that: engage, inspire, and empower, and I think it actually really does fit PV. We are a caring and vibrant learning community, and we really do try to develop the whole student. We encourage a growth mindset in every classroom. We're doing goal setting with growth mindset and mindfulness, and we are working to promote resilience and flexibility. When we did this, we're talking about 4 C's, but now we need to make them 6 C's. We do So although we have a lot of, 100% of my teachers have been trained in project-based learning, and 5 of them have already had this second level of project-based learning. And although we're not doing 100% project-based learning every day, we are using a lot of those strategies. There's a tremendous amount of collaborative learning. We have all the collaborative furniture that we've invested in over the years, and we have technology is seamlessly integrated. We're one-to-world in 4th and 5th, almost in 3rd, and about half in 2nd and 1st, and with iPads. So we're doing a lot with technology as well. Great things are happening at PV. We continue to implement Lucy Calkins reading and writing workshops. And the workshop model, whether you're doing Lucy Calkins or doing any other model, is just extremely powerful. It involves a lot of student choice and a lot of student voice. You start with mini lessons, and then the kids go, and since they have choice in what they're reading and writing, they're very, very engaged, and then teachers can pull small groups and do that differentiated instruction. And it's naturally differentiated because kids are reading at their level. So that's something that we've really invested a lot of time and money in, and having our classroom libraries. I'm sending teachers to New York. I just got 3 who came back recently. I've got 3 other teachers today who were in the East Bay at a different thing, because we really want to develop all of our strategies, specifically the small group and the conferring that we're doing in those workshops. So we're spending a lot of time with that. Another thing that we've started this year is universal access time. So this is time during the day. It's 45 minutes for every grade level, during which time there is no new instruction occurring. And that's a time when all the special groups can have their needs met. So all of my students who have ELD instruction, they go for their ELD instruction, because they have such a small number of kids. If one teacher cannot have, they might have one student in their classroom who is an EL learner. So this way we're able to meet the needs of all kids. Every single one of my EL students receives 45 minutes of ELD instruction every day. We also have a very powerful RTI program. We use Fountas and Pinnell, and of course, the first intervention is at the classroom level, where the classroom teacher is doing small group instruction with kids at that wherever they are, to meet them at wherever they're at. But if that child is not showing enough gains and needs more support, then they are referred to the academic specialist with the RTI program. We also, our resource specialist, who is actually an intern, she is just phenomenal. She has turned it around. Our special ed kids last year made growth of 20 points with her program. So we're very, very excited about that. And then we also, and also the Novato Youth Center counselor. So kids who are pulled for any of those things, during that 45 minutes, they're not missing any instruction. So I'm kind of talking all over the place, but hopefully you get where I'm going. But the other great things that are at PV is are my staff. They are just a phenomenal staff. They are strong, positive, collaborative, carrying their open mindset. They're always the first to jump on any new initiatives and incorporate them. We have an incredibly active, vibrant family community that is very, very involved with everything that we're doing. We wouldn't be able to do any of the programs that we do without the support that we get from families. And then, of course, the kids, and that's why we're all there. They are curious and engaged and motivated. So these are some of the lessons learned. So our key successes were continued progress for our EL, special ed, and socioeconomic disadvantaged students, and I believe that is due to our robust programs. That being said, our ELs did not meet standards and the CASP scores. However, they made significant progress. So they're still underachieving, but within, and so what we have to do is we have to look at individual students because our numbers are so insignificant. I shouldn't put it that way, because our numbers are so small. For example, we had one one fourth grader last year. So if she's not meeting standards, then she's at 0%, right? So we either have 100% or we have 0%. So that's kind of where we're at. Then again, I think the other success was the Readers and Writers Workshop, because we are generating students who are great readers, great writers. We're talking about DOK levels 3 and 4, the inferencing that they're making, the connections that they're making, not just in language arts, but in science and social studies as well. And then the school-wide use of technology, and then all of the collaborative learning opportunities. So our areas, when we looked at our data, and we looked at CASP, and we looked at MAP scores, so what we determined as a staff is that we needed much more targeted instruction, and the way that we're going to accomplish that is through small group instruction, whether it's in language arts or math. The other thing, we were in the red in the dashboard in terms of suspensions. So discipline is something that we've been struggling with for the last couple of years. We've had students who destroy classrooms, and we've had, tearing classrooms apart. And so we kind of are balancing at what point do we suspend them, how can we make their, how can we meet their needs? So we have done a lot of soul searching. We've done a lot of, many staff meetings devoted just to this idea of of discipline. And we're talking, so what we did is we developed a behavior matrix. And that behavior matrix shows all of the proactive things that we're doing. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next, on the next slide. But we are very concerned about the social emotional well-being of our students. And as Elizabeth said earlier, we're seeing many kids come with an inability for emotion regulation. There's higher anxiety, higher levels of anxiety, higher levels of depression. And, I attribute that perhaps to technology. And so we really do need to look at the whole child and create that culture of caring, and how can we bring them closer, and how can they belong. So you can see here our SBAC scores, our CASP scores. So if we're looking at individual cohorts, gains were made across grade levels. Although they've gone down slightly. Last year, 5th grade had 85% proficiency in ELL, but that particular cohort actually did make gains. Okay, for example. So what we've decided, again, we are very, very fortunate to be participating in this P3 initiative. Data dives, deep data dives is something that had been missing from what we were doing. We were kind of informal about it. And this year we are much, much more formal. So we're on a regular basis as a staff, in our staff meetings, we are meeting to discuss specific data. I'll ask the teachers to come with a specific thing. And we, as a grade level, we share, we collaborate to pull out the trends, and then we share them and look for trends across the school. And so, for example, in language arts, we're looking at reading comprehension. And we can look at summative or formative assessments, but the formative assessments that we're looking at are the running records that we do with Lucy Calkins, which is ongoing, and it really does look at inferencing. So even though a child may be decoding at an 8th grade level, they may not be comprehending at an 8th grade level. So we're looking much more in depth at that. In math, we're looking at, most recently we've looked at Mars tasks, and based on the results of what we found, and it was interesting because the trends go across every grade level. So we can determine who's going to be in small groups, what they're going to need in those small groups. And the same applies also so we do the Mars task, and we're also doing problem of the month, because we need to do, when we adopted the math expressions, how am I doing time-wise? Okay, oh, is it really? Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Okay, so when we when we adopted the math expressions years ago, we realized that that program was not sufficient to meet the needs of kids, and we had a black binder. And we moved away from the black binder, but we're back with the black binder to find those, what we can do in those small groups. And so sharing best practices and using the coaches a lot in our staff meetings, in our grade level meetings, and then to work with Kelly Lavelle, the data team. We should have that clock going, because then I can pay attention, sorry. Again, this is the same thing, small group instruction with language arts and math, using various data points, targeted small group instruction, providing teachers with a lot of PD, because we can look at the data, we can determine this child is in this group, this child is in that group. What do we do in those groups? That's what we need to be, that's what we need to work on, so that it is effective and robust. And then this culture of caring, so participation in the P3, so that's about the first schools is all about the culture of caring. We are starting and ending all meetings with community building techniques, whether it's circles or dyads or meditation. But then these proactive things that I was talking about, so it's a school-wide behavior matrix, the first 20 days of schools. Soul Shop is what we're using, not second steps. The counselors, buddies, Playworks, which is an organization for the playgrounds, community building circles and morning meetings for the students, connections, promoting mindfulness and growth mindset, and then student council. They're very, very active and very excited about. So they're doing a kindness project all the month of December. So these are 3 teachers who were in New York City last week. That's Times Square. They went to the Lucy Calkins training there, and they are eager to share all the stuff that they've learned there. We are very much looking forward to discovering all the ahas from the EduSnap information. We're very, very excited about that. And we'll continue to develop our culture of caring and developing teacher leaders. That's really what we want to do, sharing best practices and strategies. And I apologize for the length. And I just wanted to say, these are new things. We're still doing all of those things that we did last year, you know, all of the, so this is on top. And as Elizabeth said, we're breathing from the fire hose, hydrant.
Drinking.
Yeah. Breathing. Drinking. Whatever it was you said. Okay. Yes.
Trustee Miller, Trustee Aguila, and Trustee Scott.
I have a really long question.
Let me get the gavel out.
You mentioned the stress on the kids, and you said, well, maybe it's technology.
I wonder.
Maybe.
I mean,
Well,
that's
how is the one-on-one, one-to-world implementation going? We haven't heard anybody speak to that.
It's going amazingly well.
Okay.
You know, the kids are on Google Docs. And what I was going to say in terms of technology, I think it has to do with parents handing iPads or cell phones to their infants when they start crying. That's what I mean by technology. I don't think necessarily the technology in elementary school is detrimental. But they, in 4th and 5th grade, actually in all the grade levels, they know how to use Google Docs. Everything is online. They're communicating with each other. They're writing notes about each other's projects. They're doing a lot of research. Yep, the keyboarding. I mean, they're doing, phenomenally well.
So here we are, basically half a year into this commitment, district-wide, but 2 grade levels that you've got, all of you guys have. So I'd be interested in other comments about, I mean, so far so good is what I heard.
Yes, well, you know what, so perhaps when we're supposed to come in January, so perhaps I'll ask them to bring some examples so they can share that with you. That might be helpful. Yeah, would you like that?
That's my long question all day.
Considering it's something we just approved to see where you're at and
Yeah.
update. Yeah, that would be great. Coming from a specific school,
Good, so
that would
we'll
be
do
really
that.
good.
That would be great, okay.
Trustee Aguila.
Actually, my question was the same, but I had an addition to that, and that is how are we beating the anxiety and how are we beating the depression that you talked about earlier? So, and other elementary schools mentioned BACR and wondering if they're showing up, or FSA. to the schools and how, and if they are, how often are they doing it, and if that is enough. I don't know where the depression and anxiety is coming from, but it could be from just turning on the TV and seeing all the stuff that happens. But,
Yes, exactly.
so.
I think that's true. So we have
true.
Novato Youth Center teachers. We did have them 4 days a week. 1 day was a gift, but we're back down to 3. And we use a variety of one-on-one, but also group counseling. And they only meet the students who are on their caseload. They don't meet other kids. But we have Soul Shop, which is every month. In fact, we're having our next assembly is this Thursday. If you're interested, you could come and see. It's all day Thursday. So each grade level gets an assembly every month. And the idea of Soul Shop is it teaches kids to identify their emotions. They talk about, we have an emotional balloon, so it's one way of taking your emotions outside of yourself and being able to look at them. And we stuff our emotions in that balloon, and it can be, anger and fear and sadness. And if we leak our emotions onto somebody else, that's negative, right? So you need to learn how to communicate your emotions in appropriate ways. And so it's doing a check-in to identify, breathing, so it's kind of semi-mindful. And learning strategies to do that. We have the Peace Path, which you guys walked a couple years ago, I think. And we're finding this is our 3rd or 4th year of Soul Shop. Kids are using the language now. And it helps if because you can identify with somebody else if they have a full balloon, and becoming an ally for that person, So again, I think that's one thing. The morning meetings and the community building are extremely powerful. Kids need to have that feeling of belonging. And kids who are struggling, like the kids who are destroying classrooms, it's just bringing them closer, as I've learned from Bonnie over there. And it works, and it does work. So.
Just to follow up with that, do you also experience homelessness? How in Olive School that's happening too in Hamilton? Do you think that could also be in addition to that, or is it? Do you experience that?
It's amazing what kids are dealing with these days. It's absolutely amazing. Yes, we do have homeless, or we have kids who. One parent is in jail, and we have a lot of that. We do, yeah.
Thank you,
Trustee Scott.
Okay. For the single plan for the student achievement, I'm just curious. Can you talk about the before school learning clubs and the after school homework clubs? I know that eligible students can go to this, but are they going?
Oh, yeah.
And if so,
so our before school club hasn't started. It'll start in January, hopefully. But mostly that's just a matter of getting a teacher who agrees to come early to do that. And usually that's around January that picks up, and it's more math oriented. The after school club, we offer it primarily to our English language learners and our foster families and our low socioeconomic, and if there's room, other kids can come by invitation. But it really is an opportunity to support those kids who don't have the support at home, whether it is because of technology or the language barrier or whatever. So yeah, and that happens 3 days a week.
And that's a teacher that's teaching that? It's not a volunteer?
No, it's a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my final question is, can you talk about what the student fishbowl is? I didn't get that.
Yes.
Sorry.
So we want
I didn't know
to.
what that was.
Yes. So we would like this year to have a group of children in the middle. Around, and with teachers around, and have some questions that we can ask them in terms of what is their experience at PV. So that kind of fishbowl. And I think because kids do experience the teachers all day long, and they are extremely perceptive. And I think it would be interesting for the teachers to hear.
Good feedback. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Trustee Cooper.
We are all, listening to you, we are all about treating or caring for the whole kid, right? Family,
yeah.
When they come to school, electronic, everything.
Yeah.
And so you exemplify that really well. Have you ever looked, and I'm not sure if it's age specific, but restorative justice or some of those principles
Yes.
before the ones you mentioned. who
Right.
were-
So that's actually our reactive. I only talked about our proactive
Yeah, yeah.
stuff, but our reactive stuff is a lot of restorative justice practices where we do the no bully solutions teams. A lot of it comes to me, though, where I will be, because if kids are in conflict, they come to me and we walk the peace path and we talk about, so I should have brought another copy of the peace path for you so you could see it, but it's really saying things like, I feel really angry when people don't go by the rules, and the other person says yes, so it's that.
Yeah.
And then solution teams, and we are trying not to do suspensions, but really more the communication
The
piece.
connection,
Yeah,
yeah.
coming and
Yeah.
talking to me.
But I certainly think you're going to be paid in tremendous amounts for the work you're doing ahead of time, right? That's reactive. and that's-
Hopefully. So our
that'll
suspensions
pay
to
off.
date are significantly decreased to what they were last year. So
Good.
we started off, with the first 20 days of school, so everybody was teaching the same thing every day. And most of our issues happen on the playground, really. In the classroom, it's structured enough so it's not so bad. So PTA just okayed some money for me to bring PlayWorks, which is hopefully going to solve that, be our silver bullet for the playground. So they will come and train yard supervisors. And right now our supervisors monitor kids, but PlayWorks is more about engaging kids, so it's that next level. So we're going to do that.
Well, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dana. Next, we have Principal Angela Chrysler from Rancho Elementary.
Okay, you have 5 minutes, because that was 30 minutes. I'm just teasing you.
It's hard because we don't get so much time with you, but we have
Right.
so much to share.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. So this year's been a really exciting year for Rancho because we have linked arms with Ready, Set, Grow, which is the new coin term for early intervention. So this year we've come together and it has been quite a path of learning together. For me, the learning curve has been huge. For them, integrating into a full comprehensive general ed campus has been equally intense as we have gone together along on this path. So here are our demographics, and I included at the bottom the Ready, Set, Grow demographics because they're not combined with Rancho because they're not in CalPads, and so it's a little bit tricky sort of looking at the puzzle pieces and how they fit together. So we have 368 students that come as Rancho students, and then throughout the week, Monday through Friday, we have about 72 students who come to receive early intervention services in the pre-K classrooms. There's about 180 plus students that come for speech services, but they're not there participating in the classroom experience. And of those 72 kids, they're coming maybe 3 days a week, 2 days a week, depending on what their service plan is. So total, we have about 440 students on any given day on our campus. And you can see how that affects our special ed numbers as well. Another thing to note is our English language learner population is continuing to grow as we continue through this transition phase that Rancho is going through. So when we got the two staffs together in the spring, foreseeing that we were going to be uniting in the fall, we looked at our vision statements. And theirs is quite comprehensive for their little learners. They have a lot that they're working on with them, getting them ready for the public school system when they come to us. And ours was a little bit more brief, but still full of content. And then we looked at where was the overlap and where were those common words so that we could see where those visions were starting to align. And now that we're kind of going through our first year, we will be looking at how do we align those visions and create one joint vision together. So one of the activities that we did when we brought the staffs together was we gave them each a core values assessment. Each staff member looked at a comprehensive list of about 150 words, and were asked to select their top 10 values as an educator. And of the two staffs, of the top 10 or 11 words, there were 7 that were completely identical among those top values. So we gave them all iPads and we said, go have fun and represent this somewhere on the campus. What does this mean to you? And they had a lot of fun with it, and they got really interactive, and they were going down slides showing safety and rules. And we took those pictures and we've created canvases and we put them in our staff room to really represent the physical joining of the two staff. So that's been pretty exciting. So here are some of the highlights of Rancho. This summer, our teaching staff read The Leader in Me, which is a book written by Stephen Covey. And it's based on the 7 Habits of Happy Children. And we really found that we were really in search of a character program that really kind of fit the needs of where we were at with our students. You know, we'd had those responsibility, self-discipline, those general common terms for character building. And the kids could regurgitate what they meant to us, but they necessarily weren't internalizing them and being able to transfer them into their lives. And so by using the habits, we're really creating those habits of mind, providing them with skill sets and opportunities to really practice and engage in what those habits mean so that hopefully they can take them with them as they move to middle school, high school, and beyond. Our 4th graders came last year as part of our student presentation and presented their recess renovation project. So they worked with Mrs. Fremantle on kind of rejuvenating what our recess program was like. There had been so many things and games that had been taken away because they just couldn't handle them, and were creating more conflict than solutions. And so they kept saying, like, what can we do? And so by the time we'd gotten to the bare minimum of what they were able to do, there was still conflict happening. So we had to relook at that. And so what you're seeing here is sort of phase 1 of the rollout with the equipment. So we have increased the amount of equipment that's available to students during recess and really providing them with some very specific guidelines and expectations of how that's to be used. And then our phase 2 is actually rolling out this week, which is really exciting because the stencils that they worked on with the architect and the stencil company, they're being painted on the playground this week. So hopefully, before the break, when the students come to school, they're gonna see that and really see how their work has really impacted their community. The other piece is Do Good, Be Kind. And Jim came and participated in that. Now he has 2 kindness shirts that he's going to have to decide which to wear. But it was actually a very powerful experience for us to go through. We kind of reshaped what Red Ribbon Week was. And Maria came out, and she was there for several days of it, so thank you for that. And, you know, it started on day 1. We did a kickoff assembly, and then every day at Motion, we recognized several students, and they got high fives for doing good, kind things in the community. And then we had a big banner that you'll see the kids signing, and there's even a picture of Jim up there signing it and making that commitment to doing good and being kind. We had fill a fence with kindness acts. We did kindness rocks night, and so now our campus is decorated with these beautiful kindness rocks that children have made. And then on the final day, you'll see that school picture with all of us wearing our Do Good, Be Kind shirts, where they all became ambassadors of the message. And when you wear it, you own it, and you have to be it, and you have to live it. And it's amazing, because I'll wear my shirt, the staff wears their shirts throughout the weeks, and if something happens, I'll say, what does my shirt say? I know you have one of these too. And really, like, putting it back on them, like, we all own this, and if you're not living it and breathing it, then we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna make sure that we kind of get back on track with it. So here are our successes for the year. When we looked at our CASP scores, there were a lot of widening of the eyes because there were a lot of surprises. And when we're looking at this data and it's being normed, we're seeing some surprises that are coming to us, because when we look at the MAP data, there was some misalignment there. And so we were surprised by what we were expecting to see based on the data that MAP was giving us, and then receiving the CASP scores was sort of surprising and breathtaking. So you can see there that this is showing our 4th grade economically disadvantaged students and the growth that they made, as well as our Hispanic Latino students in 4th grade as well, both in math. And when we looked at what they had done in 3rd grade, we realized that this was a huge area of focus. And so our 4th grade teachers put their heads together and they said, what are we gonna do about this? Because we have to make sure that they make growth this year. And so 2 of our 4th grade teachers last year came from the primary grades. And so a lot of what they had done in those grade levels was a lot of small groups, and they brought them with them. And so most of our 4th grade math instruction is facilitated through small group instruction. We're very limited in the adult resources that we have in the classroom, but the teachers have created some pretty powerful management programs where the kids rotate through different groups, specifically targeted at their level. And then really when they're working with the teacher, they're working on that focused intent, either enrichment, expansion, intervention, whatever it might be at that day or for that group at that time during the unit. And we did see a huge return on that. And so we were really excited because we thought, okay, this is where we put our focus on, and this is where we were hoping to see some change, and we saw it. And so that was really, really rewarding for the teachers to be able to see that actually in the numbers. When we looked at our ELA scores for our economically disadvantaged students, both in 4th and 5th grade, we did see some good gains in 5th grade as far as reading and writing went. But the lessons learned were we needed to put some more emphasis in our reading and our writing, listening, and research. And the listening and speaking standards really kind of perked our interest because we were so curious about how that was assessed. And thanks to Kelly and the work that we've been doing with her through the P3 grant, we really looked at some resources that she made available to us that really showed us some sample questions about how that's being assessed. And so when we know how it's being assessed, then we can start in kindergarten and say, where are these skills that we need to start building those foundations on, even though we're not getting CASP results that early on, but where can we start building some breadth and depth in how that is being taught so that by the time they're getting to this test, we're not trying to backpedal and trying to make up for lost ground. So that was a big area that we focused on starting this year. But with the new pilot, we've got a lot of work on ELA that's happening right now. We're hoping to see some change with that, having some more concrete curriculum behind that. So our areas of focus based on what we got from the results were, I kind of broke it down by each goal. So goal 1, for equity, we're really structuring universal access time into our daily schedule. And so Dana spoke a little bit to that, where it's 45 minutes of protected instruction time where there's no new instruction that's happening. Students that are receiving resource, they're receiving counseling, anything that's a pull-out service from the classroom, that's when those students are having that. So every grade level has a different 45 minutes throughout the day. And then that's also when our ELD instruction is happening. And I'm going to skip down to goal number 3 because we are one of the school sites where 100% of our teachers are going through that CCT training this year. And it's very overwhelming for them. They are, they're out of the classroom a lot, getting that training, but they're coming back and they're implementing it. And that is what is exciting to see, because if they're being out of the classroom for a lot of time, getting booted up with it, and they're coming back and using it, and they're finding the value in it, that's a win-win, and that's huge. And I just went into a classroom on one day and saw a first grade lesson on verb tenses, and they were all working on were, and they were putting that sentence in context and in sentences. And then I walk into a 4th grade classroom, and they're doing the same exact lesson at a 4th grade level, focusing on the verb tense were. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I was gonna cry. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that was really exciting to see that we're already creating that vertical consistency school-wide. For goal 2, student success, our 4th and 5th grade teachers jumped in headfirst this year with student-led conferences and had huge positive feedback from our parents and from our students. They loved it. The kids have started owning where they're at, what they're doing, and what they need. It's not about us putting it on them and telling them where they're at and what they need to do to get to where they need to be. They're really becoming more involved and an active participant in their own learning and really understanding what that's gonna take. And then for goal 4, the communication piece. That was huge, and that was good feedback that we got from our parent survey last year that really told us that our parents want more information. And I was like, really? You guys want more information? I feel like we're just piling it on, and who knows if you read everything that comes home in that Friday folder. But we are using Class Dojo in our K through 2 classes, and that provides opportunities for the teachers to share photos risk-free without the parents. You know, they sign in for that. It's very privatized so that only people who sign up for that and the teacher gives permission to can view that. And then Blooms is being used in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And very similar to Dojo, it's just a little bit more advanced. But what it also does is give our room parents access to other parents and an ability to communicate bilingually. So in your native language, you can communicate with the teacher can communicate in English, and it goes right back to them in their native language. It also gives parents the opportunity to be able to communicate with each other too, and they're all free. So this has been a huge win-win for our community to be able to really increase access to information for our families. And that's all I have, and this is what we do every day, invent the future. This little girl was wearing this shirt on the playground. I was like, let me get a picture of that. I love that. And, you know, I just look at this picture from time to time and it just reminds me this is the work that we do. And it's so important because we don't know what the future is going to be like. And I have a great group right here behind me. This is where I cry. They said, is she going to get through this without crying? But I just feel so lucky to be able to work with these professionals every single day. We are a great group. We all have amazing senses of humor. And the work we do is so hard. And I just can't imagine doing it with any other team. And so, you know, as different as our schools are, we just come together and say, what are you doing? And I need this. And you look so great at doing that. And it's just, it feels very supportive. So it's been a good experience.
Great. Trustee Cooper?
Angela, thank you very much. Thank you for the energy you bring to this too. This is exciting. Can you just talk a little bit about in math you mentioned, you talked about the small group instruction. Can you talk a little bit about that? What happens? So all the other kids that aren't in the small group, what are they doing typically?
So the students are broken up by group levels for different reasons. So they might be heterogeneous, they might be homogeneous, and there's different purposes and intention behind that. And so they use it's called math, and it's each letter stands for something else, and you're going to test me on this, and I'm not going to know what they all are, but one is like T is for technology, one is at your seat, I think M is me, and that means the teacher, and H means something else. And so within each of those, you can go into the classroom, you can see math across the board, and then there's sticky notes with kids' names because the groups are changing consistently. And then there's different shapes, and the different shapes indicate what each level is doing. And so they might be doing task cards, and they might be geared specifically for a certain standard based on the map information that this group needs to work on a certain standard specifically. And so it's really very intentional, very purposeful. It takes a lot of time to plan, and you plan an hour for a 15-minute lesson. But it's important, and the data shows that it worked, and so we're just continuing to do that.
How do those kids migrate from one shape to another shape?
It depends on the standard. If they're working on numbers and operations and fact fluency, that might be one group, and then the next week they might be working on geometry, and so the groups might change.
All right.
Trustee Millerick?
Tell me about student-led conferences. How does the student, I'm going to ask a simple question. I'm sure you're going to give me a stronger answer. How does the student know what progress they should be making so they can benchmark themselves against the plan, or maybe you can describe the model better than that? I'm looking at it from my old eyes, I make a plan and follow it, but maybe you have a...
Right, so traditionally the conference was teacher sits on one side of the table, parent sits on the other side, report cards in between us, and we're just talking about that. Maybe some other things might come up in that conversation, shake hands, on your way. This year was very different. We started as early as September. We partnered with Justin Wells, and he and his team came out a couple times to our group. And then also as part of the inquiry PD, my 4th and 5th grade teachers, they worked on the assessment thread. And so we had Justin Wells' team come back out again and work with different pockets of people for different things. But they focused this year on just one behavior and one academic goal. And they used their MAP scores. We taught the kids how to look at the MAP scores and what that information was telling them.
You said there was a parent and a teacher on two sides of the table, but now the students...
So now So now it's more of a roundtable discussion where the parents are there, the student is there, and the teacher is there. The student is actually leading the conference. And then depending on the student and what their needs are, there may be a time where they might be excused. So the teacher or the parent can have more of a private conversation of whatever might need to be said that's not appropriate in front of the student. But for the most part, the student was going through what their work was, why the work was the way that it was. So that conversation's not happening when the parent goes home and your teacher said this to me, and then the kid's coming back and carrying those feelings of, oh God, you're talking about me behind my back, right? Oh goodness. So everybody's part of that collective conversation. And again, it takes time because every teacher went through, they had little mock conferences where they modeled it as if like a fishbowl scene, and then the kids practiced with each other, and which also was very powerful because then they got to actually have to say to their friend or their peer, this is where I really struggled and this is what I'm going to do about it. And so they're actually holding each other accountable, on the back end of that moving forward.
Thank you.
Trustee Mack?
Thanks for asking that question. That is very cool. I'm glad to hear about that. I'm looking forward to how that works and seeing if we
I'm
expand
trying
it.
to figure out how to raise my kids still.
Yeah. But no, I love that approach because it's accountability and
ownership.
gets the student involved.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to my go-to on the data. You had some really good data up there. I'm just curious, a lot of prep on your own to put it all together because you had the cohorts all lined up and all that. I just got to imagine that was not easy.
It's funny because I didn't know Jan Derby was going to be doing a lot of this for us, and so I did a lot of it because I was just curious what it was all going to look like. Okay. But also too, the NUSD reports page that Alex is putting together is unbelievable. I thought Schoolzilla was really clunky. I had a really hard time navigating it and really trying to pull the information that I really needed from it. But I was even able to pull up CASP, the teachers don't have access to the individual student scores, so they don't know if what they've really been doing is working because they don't have those groups to then go back and look at and say, this was the group I was really working closely with at this point in time. And so what Alex's reports are able to do are individualize them. And so we can pull up where those kids were and look year to year. Did they go from a 2 to a 4? We can actually pull up their raw score and we can compare where were they on that continuum. And so that information, while the teachers haven't had much time to really dig deep into it, the ones who have felt it very useful.
Yeah, and I think what that speaks to is the ultimate goal here is not to provide point in time results more. It's about a trend over time at the individual level.
Mm-hmm.
So K through 5, is this child growing or
Right.
not? And that's where we're accountable. So anything we can do to kind of move to that next level, move to deltas instead of just absolute values, so to speak. And that's what data can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we got to line it up. Anyway, I'm a
Anybody
broken
else?
record.
Trustee Aguila?
So I'm hoping that the principals here are getting as much information as we are from you guys, but from each other. Because I see some of the wonderful things that that Linwood has doing that I'm thinking, well, maybe Olive can borrow from that, and I'm seeing some of the things that that Loma Verde is working so hard at their issues, and maybe Olive or Rancho can borrow from that. But in your example, I'm saying that you're a great example of how you've taken our goals and you have put them in action. So by using Stephen Covey's highlights, of his habits and bringing in the do good, be kind, I really encourage other principals to look into that and then use that in their schools as well. And so, it's just, I think, I'm just enjoying seeing the good that's coming out of all the principals. I'm hoping and I'm glad that we're having everybody together and not like the high schools mixed with elementary, so that we can, all principals can borrow from each other. And so I think, this is a great example of what could be.
Yeah, and there's been a huge shift in the structure of our principals meetings this year as well too. It's much more collaborative. Last year it was a lot of us coming and getting information and taking it back to our sites. And this year I know Bonnie and Chris and Yvonne have really been working hard to make sure that those meetings provide that time for us to be able to share best practices, because that's really what's going to lift us all up together. And it's been really helpful to be able to have that time to come together and be able to share what are those good things that are happening or what didn't work.
Right.
Don't waste your time on this because it wasn't as good, and do this instead. And so that saves us all a lot of brain power to be able to figure those things out.
Right, and you're not reinventing the wheel, and you're not just teaching the students, but you're also looking at the student, the whole student, you know. So I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing, and so I hope that from tonight you learn from each other, and you know, you have a great team, and it takes a great team to do that. You know, Mrs. Fremantle's not here, but she's, you know, you have other, just a great team, so thank you.
Great. Anybody else? All right. Thanks,
Good.
Angela.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, thank you, Principal Chrysler. Next, we have San Ramon Elementary. I'm going to ask Principal Amanda Langford to come on up to present for San Ramon.
Leaving, are you?
We're standing up.
38 seconds.
Oh. Thank you for having me. It's been another exciting year at San Ramon, and so I'm excited to talk to you about some of the programs that we have going on and what we continue to work on. As you can see, as mentioned before, our enrollment did decline a little bit. We're down a certificated teacher. We were about at 500 kids last year, and so we're about 474 as of today. We've fluctuated around that the last 3 years. Our EL population is actually dropping. We had 66 EL students last year. We're at 44 this year. We had a large group of 20 that left with our graduating or promoting 5th grade class last year. And we do have 9 of the 44 that we have are in our SDC class this year. So it prevents some challenges in their own way. 10% of our population is special education. Our free and reduced population has increased a little bit. White and Hispanic have stayed pretty consistent. We have a very diverse school with a lot of different ethnicities and students from various backgrounds, as you can see. So anything below 2%, we just group them together. But we have a very diverse population. Our Russian population is actually growing this year, which is interesting. Quite a few kindergartners that Russian is their first language. So we, last year we created a literacy mission and vision because that was one of our focuses that I'll talk about in a little bit. But this is the year where we are starting to look at what our mission and vision is. And we have done a lot of that work on our staff development days so far this year. The visual that you see there is actually, we did some work learning about how we want to build the relationships and so forth in our school and what we're really about, taking some time to reflect as our certificated staff and a classified staff as well. And after, you know, creating lists and so forth about some of the activities we do and what we're about, I put those words into a word cloud, and that is what came out. And so it was just a really good visual for all of us to realize that we are student-centered. And it's about, you know, things that you'll see pop up in there. It's about a positive environment, classroom. It's okay to make mistakes. You know, problem solving, community is really big. So at this point, we're still working on our mission and vision, but where our draft is right now, having through One Principal's Coffee, certificated staff, and our yard duties. San Ramon is a caring and collaborative learning community that recognizes the strengths of all of our students to promote personal excellence. In our vision, so where we're going and the ideal of what we want the future for our students to be, focusing on the whole child, San Ramon seeks to create a challenging learning environment that fosters each student's self-esteem through positive relationships with parents, families, and the larger community. We educate with hopes that our students' learning will transfer to life experiences beyond our school, enabling each student to flourish as a responsible citizen. So that is where our work is right now. So then moving on, looking at where we have been. So looking at last year, at this point last year when I presented to you, our top priority is looking at social emotional needs. And we realized we didn't have a curriculum. My first year at Santa Mona realized that we didn't have a curriculum that started to build that toolbox that the kids have. And so last year we implemented a program called Mind Up, which was very successful. We also worked on literacy and science. So then by the end of last year and looking at our CASP results and other data we had as well, just to highlight some of those in the narrative, we did have some overall dips in literacy with the state of California last year. In our school site plan, you'll see that we grouped it by cohorts to try to follow the students to look at their, each grade level at Santa Ramon is very diverse, very different. When looking at the dashboard, which is embargoed right now, but will be released soon, it does show that we have some of the highest marks and we have a lot of really significant growth, but the exception is our EL students. And so we really need to focus on our EL students. And as I go through, I will talk about some of the ways that we're working on addressing that, more specifically as you read in my school site plan. So then our focus areas that I'll go into tonight is our first priority is health and wellness. Our second one is literacy. And our third area would be mathematics, technology, science, and engineering, not to be confused with STEM, because we're treating them in just a little bit differently. We're not developing a STEM school at this point. So the first one that was really important to us was looking at healthy choices for our minds and our bodies. And as the other principals mentioned earlier, our students come in many different packages. And we realized that that students don't come to school with a lot in their toolbox. And so what did we need to do in order to build that? So our goal this year, we started the year with Santa Ramon's Caring Community. When we presented to the board, we talked about one of our projects. Our number one piece in starting the year was how we were going to build relationships with our students and our families, so how our school day started. We are really basing a lot of our decisions and work on an old tool, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, even from the 1970s, but it's very relevant to how we are including all of our kids and giving them the self-esteem they need to be able to learn. We're also, part of the Mind Up program is actually teaching students about how their brain works and how their brain develops and how they have control over those pieces. And then we are using 2 character words. We did 2 character words last year and realized by choosing just 2 different words each year, it gives students opportunities to learn different skills, but learn new vocabulary and learn new ways to apply those by having real world examples. Right now we're doing caring and we're going to do perseverance next. We've done the caring project where we sent materials to Texas. We're doing one right now with Meals on Wheels and so forth like that. So then the other piece is really looking at our culture and providing a positive culture. And that's going to be our foundation as I drafted the Reggie, the mission and vision. So we're looking at the reconstruction of a traditional discipline policy instead of looking at a policy that's punitive based, but instead looking at a policy where it's instead of what's wrong with you, it's like what happened, how can we work on that? How can we learn from that? Making those teachable moments. All of our kids, come to us again with different skills. And so we want to work through them so that the next time something happens, they'll make the right choices. We're also looking at our tiered strategies to providing skills for our students. So everyone, looking at tier 1, everyone has the same opportunity to learn if there is a situation that is stressful or they're in conflict, that they have those tools in order to be able to resolve conflict on their own. And if not, then what? So then we have some of the counseling, like was mentioned before, No Bully Solutions team, and we're working with Youth Leadership Institute as well on different ways to work with our students. So then the next one, and very closely behind healthy choices for our minds and bodies, is literacy. And for us, we have done a lot of research as a staff on really looking at what our students need to be successful. And that research comes down to their love of reading. And what are we doing to provide that love of reading? And if students have that love of reading, if they have that self-esteem, then they'll be ready. They will want to work harder and so forth. So the number one thing is we're looking at is the time in our day. How are we spending the time in our day and making sure we are allocating time within our school day to students having opportunities to read. We are also purchasing and spending money, as you saw in our plan, on books on their level, and it's about differentiating for these students. That was a big gap with our EL learners. If all of our students are reading one book and it's not at those students' levels, what does that do for a student's ability, feeling on how they can accomplish something, on what they can learn from the text, what they can repeat back to us about a text? So it's about really looking at leveling our students and having students have those opportunities to read books at their levels. The other piece is a balanced literacy program. So it's looking at how we provide instruction, ensuring that all of our literacy instruction has time for reading, math, word work, listening, and speaking. As it includes an important setup in the classroom, kind of putting teachers out of a job in many ways and having students take ownership of the classroom and how they're producing work. Professional development is a huge component. We too are consistently sending teachers to New York City to go to Teachers College to learn about the workshop model. I had the opportunity to go to the leadership program there as well, and different opportunities to look at data on how the data relates to how we teach our reading and writing. And then finally, the lesson delivery, really looking at that mini lesson to ensuring that we are still providing direct instruction with that gradual release of student independence so that the students are building their stamina, building their reading and writing. So then the next, but of course not the last area, but if we were to go through the top three, is really looking at the mathematics, technology, and science components. Our math scores as a whole, using just our CASP data, it really highlighted that we're just kind of staying consistent, which we want to be increasing. And so we really need to look at these MARS tasks, and we really need to dive into the assessments that we do have and how we can learn to deepen our students' thinking. And also we're working on vertical articulation with mathematical practices and how that's traveling all the way through from what skills are needed starting at TK all the way through 5th grade. With technology, we've had the opportunity to, receive our new Chromebooks this year as well. We are one-to-one as a school 3rd through 5th grade. The only students taking them home at this point are 5th grade. We're going to work on 4th grade for next year. Our goal is completely to use the technology not to replace instruction, but to enhance instruction. So we have developed a technology progression for the teachers to use as a tool for them to figure out where they are in their understanding of technology, so we can talk about and collaborate what are the next steps. And then the next piece would be science. And the district provided us STEM scopes this year, which was a very good resource for our teachers to have the curriculum that they need at their fingertips, but still ensuring that we are developing lessons that really are inquiry-based and using those 5 E's, engaging, elaboration, finding evidence, and so forth like that. So then what are the next pieces? So again, still working on that mission and vision. So how are we going to make sure that our community as a whole has input into the mission and vision and what that looks like? So assessments, how are we assessing our students? Got to consider that data. So we have a lot of access to quantitative data, but the piece that we're really missing is the qualitative data. And so that's really what we're looking at this year is all of our teachers are doing running records for the students, and we're also looking at engagement observations. And as I mentioned before, the thing with reading is time, but how are they spending that time? So you say that you have designated 25 minutes set aside for kids to read books at their level, but what are they doing at that time? And really ensuring that they are on task. And if they're not, why? So we're really looking at that qualitative piece as well. Then how are we learning? So again, the professional development. So us as a staff, having been in the district for 13 years and having been here at the district office, I can say that with the shift with Common Core, we are missing the mark in many ways on how we're providing training for our teachers in reading and writing. When I say missing the mark, I just know that it hasn't been a focus because there's been a shift in standards. And so now as a team, we've started to look at how are we providing that time and opportunity for our staff. And then finally, again, vertical articulation and that continuum, the alignment with the math, technology, and the science practices all the way through. We really need to build that so that our kids have consistency and support.
Excuse me. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, quick.
Trustee Miller.
So on you said mathematics, technology, science practices, and you don't mean STEM, you mean, I assume it's a teaching science kind of model, or I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm curious at your distinction.
Well, I think that's the idea of having a STEM-based school has its own connotations, and we're not. I just don't want to mix up those pieces. But they're such an important part of working towards the 6 Cs and equity and PBL at this point. Those 4 areas, and they do interrelate so much. But we're not working on focusing our school, moving towards a STEM-based mission and vision, anything like that. I just wanted to clarify that.
So, but what I do think the implication is, to me, I mean, working in the field, is a commitment to data-driven thinking, data-driven approaches, setting up structures so you can create assessments, and that's like an underlying practice of kind of a science or an engineering approach to the world. And it sounds like you guys are doing that. You just don't want to be the science. We're gonna create astronauts or rocket scientists, and we're not gonna create anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely find value in those 4 things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to walking in the door at San Ramon, I think that there's many schools that are STEM-based. That's our number one focus. And for us, it's very important to us. But our focus actually is literacy, number one. And knowing that if students have these literacy skills, these pieces are actually going to be that much stronger, and how all of that relates.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more. This better be the best one.
Okay, so it is now my privilege, my honor, to present co-principals, co-principal Bonnie Barron and co-principal Jennifer Dudley to present for Lou Sutton Elementary.
Wow, so good evening, everyone. What we know about good instruction is that after 10 minutes, everyone needs a break. So I want to thank you for hanging in there for almost 2 hours of listening to us, and bear with us as we share our plan with you. Before I start, I want to say that everybody should have a co-principal, and we both have other jobs, and we find that we are working 2 full-time jobs, and so what's in front of you may not match exactly what's on the slides, because we were just working on it today, since we have to do a whole lot more planning based on our job share. Here we go.
At Lou Sutton, we are a very diverse school. And you can see that here in our demographics. We're very lucky to be so diverse. The majority of our students are low socioeconomically disadvantaged, and a majority of our students are also Hispanic. This demographic, as well as the number of students that we've had enrolled at Lou Sutton, hasn't changed a whole lot in the last few years.
So this slide that you see in front of you now was developed about 4 years ago, and our values actually have not changed. This is what we developed when we were beginning to talk about a caring culture. And it's evolved a bit, but in the 2 areas I want to point out are mostly what we do around a sense of belonging, and how everything at our school, and I mean everything, in our school culture is based on relationships. And because of that, we no longer have punitive or any consequences that are negative for our students. It's all done through relationships. And in doing that, that means that we have to develop students who are strong socially and emotionally. And so we have a really clear instructional program so that all of our students can be successful learners. There's tons of research that says that you have to have high social supports for students in order for them to have student success. And we know that that social support means explicit instruction around social emotional and in an environment that is safe and caring for all. To that end, we focus on developing the whole child, independence, self-regulation, and providing opportunities for autonomy, student choice, and student voice. All of this is really supported by our work that we do in the county with our P3 work, and it has become, we now say that we don't even think of ourselves as a caring culture, that it is just who we are. It is our way of being, and it has transformed. We look at everything that we do through the lens of a caring culture. Oh, I have the next one too. So the good things that are happening, you'll see in the slides here that we've connected them to the district graduate profile. So lots of collaboration. We have a makerspace that our 5th graders helped us design through a project-based learning project last year. We have an amazing garden, thank you, to the support from the district. We have school-wide projects every year around literacy and art. We had a school-wide STEM activity. So lots of collaboration school-wide and in the classrooms. Around critical thinking, for us, that's a focus easily attached to math. And you'll see in our data in a bit, and when you look at our site plans, that math, maybe across the district, if not the state and the county, math tends to be a lower area, so we focus on critical thinking with math, which you see here in the picture side by side. Activity, and we have a math representative at our school that sits on the math district committee with support from the math elementary coach. That critical thinking and math for us are closely linked. We also had all of our staff trained this year on what's called VTS, or Visual Thinking Strategies, which is an amazing program that develops critical thinking. And along the same lines, metacognition for the last 3 years, you've heard from other principals talking about EduSnap data. One of the data points is around metacognition, and we are still having low scores in the area of metacognition, but through critical thinking and intentional work, that is another one of our goals. Communication, you heard from Angela at Rancho about the student-led conferences. We're the other school that partnered with Justin to not have it be the teacher-parent, but the student, and not have the report card be the focus, but the evidence of their work and their goal setting and the graduate profile be the focus of the conference. So that opportunity for all of our 4th and 5th graders to practice communication skills. We have school-wide murals where students are presenting, and then at our weekly community meeting, you heard other schools are also doing community meetings. We have that as well to help give a platform for students to present. And then we kind of lump together conscientious learner, character, learning and cultural competence, and some, just to throw out some ideas for that. At school, we're doing Second Step, Mind Yeti morning meetings, community gathering, and equity journey partners, which would all support some of the fun things happening at school that also support their graduate profile.
So above all, you're hearing in this that we believe in a sense of belonging, and that we really, at Lou Sutton, really believe that without this, you can't have anything else. You can't have success, you can't have achievement, you can't have students that are doing well and ready to move on beyond elementary, high school, and college. So we really put a lot, and we invest a lot into a sense of belonging. We do that through social emotional learning. We do that through autonomous experiences, both, let's say, at recess, but also in the classroom through activities that provide for choice and independence and autonomy. And we do that through establishing very strong relationships, both between students as well as between adults and students, and adults and adults. So that's first and foremost for us. What we've found is that we've worked on this for a very long time now, and we're starting to see the results This year, when we looked at our CASP results, we looked at it in a multiple number of ways. One of the ways we looked at it was to look at the scale scores, because that's a way that we can really see growth. If we just look at percentage of students meeting or exceeding grade level, it's harder to see if our students are actually moving up, because although they may be staying in the same band, that doesn't show any growth with our percentages of them moving bands. But if they're in that band and they're moving up, then we're able to capture that growth, or if there's a decline. So we looked at the scale scores, and what we found for English language arts, when we looked at 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders in 4 different subgroup areas, which was EL, Hispanic, low income, and white. So when we looked across 3 grade levels and 4 subgroups, we found that for ELA, that we were first or second in the district for 10 out of 11 of the scores. We were at or above the state average for 8 out of 11 of the scores, and we were on average throughout all of those different subgroups at the different grade levels, 16 points above the state average. We also found that when we looked at the growth of percentage of students at meeting standard or exceeding standard, we were finding similar results in the amount of growth at those 2 bands at or above grade level. For math, we saw similar results when we looked at the scaled scores. We were first, second, or third in the district for 10 out of 12 of the scores. We were at or above the state average for 8 out of 12 of the scores, and we were 6 points above the state average. For math, it was a little bit different when we looked at the percentage of students that were at or above grade level. We were finding fewer students that were reaching those percentages or increasing our percentages at those grade levels. So, at those performance levels. So that really, math is an area that we are really looking closely at this year.
So our areas for improvement, though you've heard us say that we have been focusing on a caring culture for many years. It's true we have. But every year we start with the same goal, which is to recommit to our caring culture and going deeper with that. So this year was no different. We strengthen our culture by continuing our journey with cultural proficiency, supporting our students, and connecting with building relationships. And so those are the words you see up there. I just want to talk a little bit about each one. With the relationship learning walks, that's with our partnership with Nancy Dome. We spent the last year and a half talking about the environment learning walks, and we've done it with Journey Partners. Tomorrow at our staff meeting, we're introducing the next tool, the next rubric. It's on relationship learning walks, and that will start tomorrow. Tier 3 students, the reason that's up there as an area for improvement is because our Tier 3 students, and just to define that for us, that's boys, students of color, and our language learners. And so they are our most at-risk student. And this year, for our caring culture, we are going to, each of our teachers have picked a focus student where we're doing lots of reflection, giving feedback and support. Jennifer and I are available, but they also have partners that with their grade levels to talk about what do we do to help these our most at-risk students. Our other area for improvement is around collectivist events, and so we did one last year, which was a huge success for our community, and this year we'll do 2, and in fact one of them is this Thursday night, and then in taking it deeper, which is always the goal, we have decided to, and it was with some nudging from Zaretta Hammond and Nancy Dome, 2 experts that have been supporting us in our equity work. And the recommendation from them was don't stop with the events. That collectivism really needs to be part of your daily interactions. So it's the day-to-day meetings that we have with our parents. So for example, if a parent comes into the office, instead of saying, how can I help you? That first we say, it's so nice to see you. How was your Thanksgiving? How's your child? making those connections and those relationships on every single interaction to build those relationships. So when we do our events, our big school-wide events, it's our focus and our goal is to make it collectivist, but even more so, we're all each of us, and it means lots of reminders because each of us are committing to all of our daily, day-to-day interactions to be collectivist.
So we've been pretty good about looking at summative results. We can look at summative measures inside and out, upside and down. But what's harder for us is to really look at formative results, and that's because we haven't been doing them as often. So our big focus for this year is to really understand what formative assessment looks like and to create a system around formative assessment. So we've been doing that with Kelly Lavelle as part of our P5 grant, as well as building leadership capacity with our ILT grade level reps. And so they've been looking at how they can in their PLCs support this work, as well as brainstorming different ways that give us daily, weekly progress monitoring, or you could even argue minute by minute, hour by hour progress monitoring. We want to get as close as we can to how the students are doing and how we can best support them. The other side of that, these two goals really go hand in hand, is how do we use the formative assessments to give us information so that we can provide instruction that is tailored to each student's needs. And so that differentiated instruction in the form of small group instruction is the most powerful. That's one of the predictors of success for our students, one of the highest predictors of success, how we can do that for our students so that they are most successful. And so we've really had a lot of discussion this year about how formative assessments and differentiated instruction is going to get to the heart of students. And sometimes we kind of have this barrier with a lot of our teachers where they think of data as something that is removing themselves from students. And so we're trying to support a mindset around data, that data is a way to see inside of the hearts and minds of our students and to uncover where they're at and to get them to know them even better. So it's not something that is removed, even though it is in the form of numbers. It is something that actually brings us closer to them so that we can really meet them where they're at. And so to finish off, we have hopefully a video will play. We're not sure if it's going to work, but we have a lot to tackle this year and in the future, and we're going to go into it with a growth mindset. And just recently, as one of our character traits of the month, our fifth graders presented to the whole school their idea of growth mindset and leading us in how we can also use a growth mindset in all of the work that we do. So hopefully this plays for you because it's really sweet. Mousepad doesn't move. Oh. Thank you.
It's short, less than 2 minutes. Maybe we can entertain some questions if there are any questions.
How do you get co-trustees like you?
I know.
I'll take the first. Yeah, I'll take it. Exactly.
Any questions? Data, right? But I love your take on data in terms of one number can't tell a story. It's all the numbers taken together in totality
Yeah.
that can help a teacher who might not be a number wonk, but really can see it all together, and it tells a story. It generates information that can help them. So I love that attitude, and I want to do what we can to provide that holistic set of numbers, all the data that tells the whole story for each of the kids. That's key.
Yeah, looking at multiple measures as well as meeting the teachers where they're at. So what are they comfortable with? If they're just starting in this journey, getting comfortable with data, where do they want to start looking? And then as sometimes you hook them in that small way and then they start digging deeper on their own. Yeah.
Okay, Russ, Trustee Miller? Whoa, Adeline.
Whoa. I was watching the evening news last night, and they were talking about General Kelly, who has recently been in the news, but they talked about his background and what he had done in terms of taking data in the battlefield and collecting it and making it actionable faster. So they were able to, by practices he developed, which were not common, they'd bring data and take it back and then study it and then take the next action. They were making it actionable within minutes, and they were able to take and resolve challenges to other members of the armed forces and save lives because they acted on it quicker as opposed to days later or weeks later. They were minute by minute. So they said in one case that they'd gone through a chain of like 5 phone numbers and connections and information in one 2-hour period, where they got from the beginning of a thread to the end of the thread and were able to intervene in some event that they wanted to stop because they worked fast, and the people who were using the data were trained to action it as opposed to collect it and store it. I thought it was just, I had never thought about it in that case it had life consequences, but you're saying some of the same things. You're saying, how do we take this and make it effective now, not tomorrow or the week after or at the end of the quarter.
Moment by moment.
Yeah, moment to moment. I thought it was a different dimension.
You know, you can send us the link.
Great.
And we can watch it tomorrow morning when we wake up. And I think we need to remind ourselves that data is not about teaching to the test. It's about what drives instruction and what's happening in the classroom and how you adjust. So I think we all get that, but we've been talking about that at length tonight. And we did that with the secondaries. Data was part of our questioning with them. And
Oh, right.
oh, there it is.
The audio.
We'll just send it to you.
Yeah, just send it to us.
No.
There it is. Yes.
This is impossible. I'm not smart. Can I stop doing this?
Can you make it bigger?
Just
Oh.
when it looks like there's no hope for me and Eddie, Eddie decides to take charge and get control of his thinking.
That is Chromebook? This is
That's right. Eddie has moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. You see, Eddie is the one that actually calls the shots, and he is the one who needs to believe in himself. So when he thinks confident thoughts, I, his brain, responds. And if Eddie tells me to be positive, I do it. Just look at us now. Way to go, Eddie. I should try my hardest. I will finish it for my learning. I'll keep going. This is challenging, but I know it's important to try. I am smart. Come on.
This was excerpt, so thanks for letting us share that with you. Yeah.
that is
Great.
that is-
So let me just say this to all the principals. Thank you very much. Oh, God.
Nice.
Okay, so we could, it did take a long time, but it's so valuable that we have all of you here this evening, and this is our one chance to interact with you. Like you said, we try to get out to your sites, but this is our one chance to hear what is happening, and we could have just sat here and Yvonne could have presented your plan, and it would have been nothing. And to have that presentation, it adds value. Your voice here at the podium adds value, so thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's been a long day for you, so maybe tomorrow on your way to work, get a venti coffee instead of that tall coffee. So this is a discussion action item, and so this is to. Okay.
Elementary school plans.
I'll second.
Of the second, or yeah, the single plans for student achievement.
For student achievement from Lou Sutton, Linwood,
Nope, that's it. Okay, we have a first, trustee Miller, a second by trustee Aguila. All in favor? Okay. Ross? Raise your hand, Ross. Okay, thank you, 7-0.
Is that really a fire
Right.
alarm?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just check with the board. We have 3 more items. It's past 10 o'clock, so I just want to make sure we're awake and I'm ready to move on these, move forward with 3 more items. Is everybody good with that? Okay.
Is that really a fire alarm?
Is that? Oh, technology. Mhm. Okay, so
Okay,
Yvonne is up for our next item, the adult ed grant.
So this is,
grant.
resolution, we have a new coordinator of student services who is a voting member for the Marin County Consortium for Adult Education block grant. It is a formality to get the approval from the board for Karen Ballantyne or designee to be appointed by the Board of Trustees to represent Nevada Unified School District on the Consortium Oversight Committee to be able to provide input and make decisions at the consortium on our behalf. I just want to say that we are very excited with the work that Karen's doing moving forward with adult education, and so that we can continue to provide every possible opportunity for our students to get a high school diploma, a GED, or high school equivalency diploma. So the superintendent staff are recommending approval of resolution number 10, adult education block grant.
And it looks like we need to do a roll call vote. So if I could have the motion.
I'll move up.
Okay. Trustee Millerick? Trustee Mack is a second, so I'm going to do a roll call vote. Trustee Millerick?
Aye.
Trustee Nell?
Aye.
Trustee Aguila? Trustee Mack? Trustee Cooper? Aye. Trustee Scott?
Aye.
And Trustee Butler is aye. Thank you. That's a 7-0 passage of that. And yeah, you just crawl out from under your desk. Okay, the next item is the board policy 6146.3 and the AR along with it.
All right, this next one is, I would like to have, invite Jen Larson, our coordinator of secondary education, to come on up and join me here. Tonight, the action item is a recommendation to approve all revisions made to board policy 61463 and the AR regarding reciprocity of academic credit. I also want to thank Cynthia, who's here from Novato High School Community Liaison. This right here, Jen's going to speak a little bit more to it on the why, the process, and I'm very excited about this because this is really putting into action our district goals and our values around equity. So thank you, Jen, for leading this work, and here's Jen.
Thank you, and I want to just mirror what Yvonne just said. It's been very exciting to work on this, and I think I want to give you guys a little bit of background because we kind of stumbled upon this, and it was a project that took on a life of its own and actually led us down a path that I think was so important and has made a significant change in the lives of our students so far, and will do so at an even faster rate once we are able to move forward with this. So I'm actually going to open up.
Yeah, everybody has this on their little presentation.
It should say board policy 6146.3. I'm okay. Oh, there it is. All right. So this all started about a year and a half ago, and what we're presenting tonight is the result of that work. What began as a seemingly simple edit or change that needed to happen in Aries turned into something much, much more. About a year and a half ago, we stumbled upon an inconsistency between our high schools. One was reporting grades as credit, no credit, and one was doing pass-fail. Not a big deal, but it does make a difference because we want there to be consistency. When we looked into that a little bit more, we found an additional transcript where the student actually was given grades. So that makes a big impact because a student who has grades now has a calculated GPA, and then it changes their account or their ability to get college grants, to be able to apply to begin with. And so in seeing this, we started doing a lot of information gathering. And in doing so, what we found was there was 3 main focuses. One was the inconsistency in how we were awarding credits. So if they were getting a full 10 credits, whether they were getting 5 credits, or no credits at all. The second was an inconsistent grade equivalency. So depending on whether or not the transcripts were notarized, depending on the countries the students were coming from, depending on the information on the transcripts that those were coming from, and also based on the ability of that school at that time to translate what was on those transcripts, was not necessarily the same. And so we saw some inconsistency in grade equivalencies. The third was an inconsistent access to transcript translation. So like I said again, we don't offer any kind of program in which transcripts are translated for students or families. So if students can come and have access to a service that can do that, we have it done for us and we know that it's accurate. If not, we found that there wasn't a procedure in place that was guiding our staff as to how to move through that process. In addition, there weren't the resources for them to do that in a way that was consistent. So those 3 things are the reason why this project came together. From there, we put together a team. Our team was obviously instruction and innovation, IT, and then really a good part of this research has come from our connections with counselors and with our registrars, their past experiences, but also reaching out to, we started with local districts, moved out to districts that had a little bit more experience with this, and then also really connected with the UC system and what their guidelines are when they're taking in transcripts from us in the next step. And so taking all that together, we put together a procedure guide. In that procedure guide, the 4 things that I think were most pertinent were the fact that, number 1, once we take in a transcript, there needs to be a 30-day process. At this point, some of the transcripts that are out there were sitting out there for months. And so students didn't quite know where they were or what they had to do to graduate. The second one is grades assigned when provided. So for example, if there is a score of any kind on their transcript, that we will provide a grade equivalence to our system. And I'll talk about how we're gonna do these things in just a minute. Third is we're gonna assume college prep. So we don't offer, for example, a non-college prep English class unless it is specified by an IEP, 504, something along those lines. Like that, when we get a transcript from another country, regardless of region, we're gonna assume that that was designed to meet the standards of that university system unless otherwise noted. And then the 4th one was we don't allow, without special circumstances, over 80 units a year. So a lot of transcripts that come from countries outside of the US, they go for an extended school day. And so there actually is students who are attending far more classes than we would attend here in the United States. And they deserve to get credit for that. Having said that, we also can't graduate a student with 460 units, and possibly in some cases not graduate a student with 460 units because those were all elective units. So what we did, and this was a lot of discussion with our registrars, our counselors, and like I said, other areas who do this a lot more, we agreed on 80 as the cap. Priority is always going to be given to graduation requirements. So if they have US history, for example, if they have English, for example, those will be offered at 10 units. Once all of the graduation requirements are covered, then the rest of them will be given a number of credits that adds up to 80 or less, but we need to make sure they get credits because if we don't give them credits, the grades don't count towards their GPA. Does that make sense? So those are the 4 areas that we really addressed in the procedure. Now the hard part with that is, what are we going to use for that? You guys have heard the reports page over and over. Alex has done an incredible job, and for the most part, that's all around data. What he was able to create for us on that page was an additional tab that is called grade equivalency. And I don't know if I can look it up. I certainly could try in a moment here. But basically, he started with the top 10 countries that we see students transferring from. We will get to that. At this current moment, we have 64 different countries represented. It'll take us a long time to get through 64. Probably don't need to get to some of the ones that are more uncommon. But of those 10, between online resources, between the college system, between other districts, he's actually created a page where you simply click the country and it gives you all of the potential grade equivalencies in that country. So for example, Guatemala, sometimes it's a number, sometimes it's a pass-fail, sometimes it's a letter grade. All of those are lined up with what that would correspond to in NUSD. So that work is done for us. In addition, we have created kind of it's a Google Doc, but a working document that basically aligns exactly what is happening for each transcript. So where the registrar will record what was the actual words on the transcript, what was the actual translation of that, and then what are we going to say that that is transferring to in our system? So what is the course code for us? Again, for example, this is really relying on the counselor guide for the UC. It no longer says language other than English. It is language other than language of instruction. So again, this was one of those big inconsistencies. Some students were given English credit for English classes in other countries. Some were given English other than language other than English for those same classes. So making sure that we're aligning with what the UC does. And so that again is all aligned. The course codes are now aligned. Everybody will have the same procedures. Okay, what is the impact? This is important. Appropriate grade and course placement. This was a shocking one to me. When we started going through this, we had a number of students who were current seniors that were sitting in classes they didn't need because we didn't realize that they didn't need it based on these kind of guidelines. They had already done the work. So fortunately, having done this early in the year and having the support of the schools and the people on campus who really were advocating for this, even prior, this was almost like a way for us to pilot how this works. Of the 24, and you can correct me, I believe it's 24 students that we were able to go through and update last year, 9, I believe, graduated that weren't on track to graduate, either because we were able to switch their classes and get them where they need to be, or because they actually had the units and we just didn't know it. Another easy one was, for example, they allow for home economics to count for health, so we could waive that health requirement. So a number of things like that. The second was access to financial aid. Now that they had an updated GPA, they were able to apply for FAFSA, DREAM Act, all kinds of other grants. And last but not least, access to actual college screening. While colleges are always going to take the international transcripts and translate them themselves anyways, if they don't meet the minimum GPA to even get through the screening, that's not going to happen. And so just in this little small group we've done so far, we've seen a huge impact. And what this really led to for us is for this to become a priority and for us to be able to do this in a timely manner for all students, we really needed to address this in our BP. So that is what you have in front of you today. And unless you have questions or there's anything you would like to see changed, I would love for this to be a first and final reading. Question?
If this gets adopted today, when does it start in effect?
Well, the procedures themselves have started. What we really found, because we were looking for this in BP, how is it outlined in BP? And what we found was we addressed just about everything except for international students. And so we needed to add what to do with transcripts from international schools. So we include what to do from continuation schools, out-of-state schools. This is simply just adding in language to say that we will have a procedure, which is a separate document altogether. And so this has already started. The board policy simply says that we are going to say that we will have a procedure and we will update it on a regular basis to ensure that this is done. Yeah, happily to. So the procedure itself has started. The board policy would simply be the documentation that a system like this is necessary.
Graduation of 2018.
Absolutely, although we did enforce this and make changes to some of graduation class 2017.
So you think that by doing this, it would be averaging out. So if some students won't slip through the cracks, and those who we don't graduate, people that should not be graduating.
And I think that's a really good point, because just as much as this has been supportive of some students, it actually has lower GPAs for some as well, because it really is an accurate representation of the education they've had everywhere.
And on the other hand, it could be helping to graduate some students that should be graduating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think more than anything, it is simply putting procedure into place that ensures that we have support for our staffs. What I can say is in this process, the number of hours and dedication our two high schools have put into doing their best to do this has been immense. And I want to make sure that we have something in place that supports the work that they're doing and gives them the tools that they need to do it accurately.
And so how would this, I'm sorry, so how would this apply with our third high school?
It's the same.
It's the same.
At this point, like I said, most of this, so we're actually working on one right now that was transferring over. We'll be working with all three high schools. As far as newcomers who are coming, and we want to make sure this is in place so that we're not playing catch up for much longer. But we would want the evaluation to happen at their neighborhood school, unless they are obviously assigned to Marin Oaks because they are super senioring, something along those lines.
Okay, Trustee Miller, and then Trustee Mack.
I'm looking at the board policy, and I'm reading the paragraph. It says, the district shall accept for credit full or partial coursework satisfactorily completed by students while attending a public school, international school, which I think is the new word, it's in red.
Yep.
A juvenile court school or non-public, non-sectarian school or agency. So my concern was, we have WASC certified schools in this country.
Yes.
But in other countries, they have other certification programs, and not every unit should transfer from a non-certified, whatever that means, school. Have you looked at that?
We have. We've looked at that quite a bit, and that goes back to, in the end, any student who's going to be applying for colleges, once they get through that screening, their international transcripts are going to be pulled, and they actually will have a service that goes through this a second time. So what the colleges set up, or the UC guidelines set up, is kind of a guide for what they would expect high schools to do in this process, understanding that there could be some differences. One of the things, like I said, with our staffs working tirelessly, is trying to get on the phone with these schools who, number one, they often have a language barrier. Number two, they're not quite sure what the questions are to ask. So that's why the UC sets up these guidelines.
Right. So even if we're overly generous, we grant credit for something that isn't a WASC certified or whatever, the accredited school in the home country. By the time they hit UC system or the Cal State system, they'll go back and revisit that same evaluation and make an appropriate evaluation. The worst case we can do is give them too much credit, and at least their grade points up and they get considered.
Absolutely, and like I said, in some cases, the grade would go down because of the performance in those classes. For example, if they had a course where the grade actually equates to a D, but before they had a pass, that actually wouldn't. So it basically, our job on their records is to simply have an accurate representation of what we were given.
So in some other countries, you can take the course as many times as you want, and you get the highest grade, where if we had taken it, I believe in our system, if you take algebra 6 times and you pass it 1 time, you still got 5 Fs and a C.
That's true.
And they get averaged.
In most of the transcripts I see, they will retake the course. They don't get credit for it until they get the highest grade, like you said. So it would only be assigned to them 1 time on a transcript.
Okay, so for us, they would only assign it once. Okay. I think this is really important work. I think with more and more students coming from overseas, to treat them fairly and not ask them to take courses that they've had demonstrated mastery in before is just the way we should be doing business all along. So I'm thrilled that you're doing this, have brought it forward, and I fully support the extra effort that you've done. I think it's just being fair.
Yeah, Trustee Miller, Trustee Mack.
Just a really quick question. Can you kind of, rough numbers, how many students a year does this affect?
When we start looking at it a year, I will guess, because we're only looking at high school students, maybe you have a better number of this. I'm going to guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30. No? More than that? Could you give me a better estimate? No? Yeah.
More than 20.
Yeah, I'm just thinking last year we had about 27 who were seniors, but that's not taking into account students who have possibly left our schools since then. So that was what we had last
Pretty
year.
significant numbers.
It is.
Okay, I had
Yeah,
no
and
idea
growing.
it could be that big. Okay, and then if you're kind of just to the top 3-4 countries we're seeing this from.
I would actually say Guatemala, El Salvador, Russia are the ones that we're seeing, and I think it was interesting to hear Amanda bring up that as well. But those are the 3 that we have.
There's a lot
Finland?
of Russian residents in Nevada, Russian-speaking residents in Nevada.
Finland?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, I haven't looked at all the transcripts. Someone on the school campus might have a better idea of that.
Okay, so if everybody's in agreement, we can, as a
adoption
first
as the
and
final
final.
reading, first
I'll
and
second.
final. This is the
Okay.
right way to do business.
Trustee Mack, okay. First by trustee Millerka, second by trustee Mack. All in favor to move this policy forward, or the corrections? 7-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for staying.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you for doing all
Yeah,
your
thank
work.
you. Okay, the next item and our final item is the interdistrict board policy 5117. And this looks like a first and final. We had already 5116, and this is just the sister brother of that one.
Correct. So we spent a lot of time on the intra-district policy. This is the inter-district policy that accompanies it. We made some minor adjustments that were recommended by CSBA and Gamut to make sure we're compliant with updates in law. These are just your standard normal updates that we're required to update. The bigger change is the language that we included that relates specifically to Linwood Elementary School and the dual immersion program. And the language that we included here is identical to what we included for students doing an intra-district transfer from one school to Linwood. And what it says in essence is that if you're doing an inter-district transfer from one district into Linwood at K and 1, should there be space, then we can make that transfer. You have to go through the process, we can make that transfer. At 2nd through 5th grade, assuming that there is space and we've gone through all the Linwood folks first, then the intras. When it comes time for the intras, students will have to demonstrate that they are biliterate at the level expected at Linwood's school for that particular grade level, which is identical language to what we had included in the intra-district policy, with the difference being that you're coming from a different district instead of from a different school site within Novato. So those are the changes. You have the report in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions on this? Okay. This is a first and final. Anybody? Okay, trustee Cooper is a first. I'll second. Trustee Aguila is a second. Any comments? Any more questions? Okay, so Cooper is the first. Aguila is the second. All in favor to move this policy forward? Okay, thank you. 7-0. All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Is it? Thank you, Chris. So for the board, our next meeting is the 19th of December. Right now, the closed session is scheduled at 5:30, so a half hour earlier. We may not have a closed session, so we'll know more as it gets closer. But right now, it's scheduled at a 5:30 closed session with the meeting to start at, then the closed session at 5:30, and then a special study session at 6 o'clock, and then our board meeting itself at 7. So we may not have the 5:30 close, and it might just start right away at 6 o'clock. But, obviously, we'll let you know. Yep, but I just want to make sure you have that on your calendar. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.